The summer sea rolled beneath a pallid dawn, its restless waves the color of hammered bronze. A steady wind bellied the black and red sails of the Balerion, flagship of Daenerys Targaryen's fleet, and sent briny spray spattering across the forecastle. Above the masts 3 dragons wheeled, Drogon, vast as a merchantman's shadow, regal, green-gold and curious, and pale Viserion, whose ivory wings glimmered like moonlit sand. Their raucous cries drifted over the water, mingling with the snap of canvas and the low thunder of drums that set the rowing cadence for the galleys astern. Daenerys stood at the prow where the carved dragon head cut the wind. A loose mantle of lightweight orange silk, chosen to honor Dornish colors, fluttered from her shoulders, and her silver-blonde hair was plaited tight against the sea breeze. She tasted salt on her lips, felt it crusting on her cheeks, but her violet eyes never left the horizon where a tawny shoreline beckoned. Dorne, the southernmost spear point of Westeros, hot and dry and stubborn. Across those ochre dunes and jagged red mountains waited allies or enemies who would help decide the fate of the 7 kingdoms. Footfalls approached. Tyrion Lannister steadied himself on the railing, squinting into the dawn. The sun spear is said to rise crimson from the sand, he mused. Some claim it pierces the sky. Others say that in summer heat it trembles like a mirage. Let us hope our welcome proves more solid than smoke. She spared him a smile. Prince Doran's raven promised safe harbor at Planky Town, but words are wind. We will earn our welcome through fire if need be. Tyrion's mismatched gaze flicked upward to Drogon. Let us hope the sand snakes prefer parley to being roasted. Below, Grey Worm barked unsullied commands along the deck. Bronze helms gleamed, and spears rattled in perfect unison. Missandei stood nearby with parchment, translating Dothraki riders' reports. Farther aft, Varys leaned on his cane, robes of dusky rose swirling like desert dust devils. Together they watched Dorne grow. A gull cried, then another. Soon white wings flocked around the rigging sign of shallow waters. Captain Groleo shouted orders. Sailors hauled lines. Banks of oars drew upward with a hiss, dripping seawater. The Balerion slowed, gliding toward the broad mouth of the Greenblood where the river fanned into sleepy marshland spiked with reeds and ghost willows. Planky Town appeared as a sprawl of bleach-white wharves on tar-black pilings, everything lashed together by causeways of timber planks, swaying gently upon the tide. No towering lighthouse greeted the fleet, only a crimson banner bearing the sun and spear of House Martell, lifting in morning wind like a challenge. Trumpets pealed from the docks. Rows of spearmen in copper scale formed a cordon, shields painted with suns ablaze. At their center waited a litter draped in silk awnings. Beside it, tall, sun-kissed, hair glossy black, Princess Arianne Martell stood with a look of quicksilver curiosity. She wore a wrap of soft sand-colored linen that left one shoulder bare and bared more confidence than any suit of steel. Daenerys ordered a landing barge. As Tyrion clambered down the rope ladder after her, he muttered, "First impressions, Your Grace. Let us be splendid." The planks bobbed beneath her feet when she stepped ashore. Warm reeds scented the air like dry hay seasoned with salt. A hush rippled through the crowd as dragons swept low overhead, the gust of their passage sending banners snapping. Unsullied helmets glinted. Dothraki calls loosed proud shouts. Sailors whispered oaths to the 7 and to darker gods. Princess Arianne advanced, barefoot upon the sun-hot planks. She bowed, not low, but deep enough to acknowledge blood of Valyria. Daenerys Stormborn, Queen of Meereen, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Mother of Dragons, Dorne bids you welcome. Her voice was husky, half sun, half silk. Daenerys inclined her head. "Princess, you honor us." Their eyes met, violet to molten brown. In that heartbeat past judgments, curiosities, ambitions. 2 women, each taught from birth that men ruled the world, now weighing how to bend it to their wills. Arianne gestured toward the litter. "My father Prince Doran waits within the water gardens where cool marble tempers the sun's cruelty. Shall we ride?" Daenerys glanced up at Drogon banking lazily above. "The dragons will join us later." They dislike roofs. The princess's grin flashed like a drawn knife. The water gardens nestled among date palms and sparkling pools that threw shards of light across alabaster colonnades. Children of Dornish nobles splashed laughing beneath lemon trees while silk-robed tutors fanned them. Redstone pathways wound through beds of blood-orange flowers whose petals perfumed the heat. Prince Doran Martell awaited on a shaded terrace overlooking a mirror-still pond. Gout-swollen joints confined him to an ornate wheeled chair, but his dark eyes were sharp as a viper's. Beside him stood Ser Ario Hoda, hulking, silent, ash-hafted long axe in hand, white cloak rippling. "Your Grace," the prince said, voice soft as evening wind. "This day long awaited. My sister Elia spoke often of Rhaegar's gentle manner. Mayhaps I glimpse him in you." A pang went through Daenerys. She knelt and kissed his withered hand. "Elia's memory is a song I never heard yet know by heart." Doran's gaze glimmered like sunlight on water. "We speak plainly here. My house has bled. Oberyn, my brother, fell in the fight for justice. My niece's thirst for vengeance. The Iron Throne sits upon a rotten foundation of child murder and broken oaths. I would see that throne broken." He paused. "To forge anew beneath Dragonfire." Tyrion cleared his throat. "If we might discuss terms." Aerion cut in, eyes bright. "Not terms, ties. Fire and sand braided stronger than iron. Let wedding garlands bind houses, not parchments that burn at first spark." Daenerys felt heat flush her cheeks. She sensed dozens of futures spinning. "A wedding alliance," she said slowly. "My blood joins yours. But whose hand?" The princess's lips curved. "Mine, if your grace wishes it." Silence settled, broken only by Fountain's hush. Varys's eyebrow arched. Grey Worm's spear tapped stone once. Doran's smile was infinitesimal. Alliance through matrimony, queen and princess, dragon and son. Bold. Daenerys studied Aerion's poised strength, the flicker of defiant fire. She thought of the 7 kingdoms fractured by men's wars. Perhaps a queen and a princess could kindle something new. Yet politics of hearts and crowns entangled like Dornish vines. "We will speak further," Daenerys said. "For now, let friendship be seed. Alliance shall blossom under care." Aerion accepted with a nod. Deference gilded by promise. Weeks unfurled beneath a ruthless sun. Daenerys established her court within the palace of the Tower of the Sun at Sunspear. The tall lance of sandstone pierced cobalt sky, its shadow a sundial across the Spear Tower rooftops. Dragons nested upon its highest ramparts, their roars echoing nightly over Shadow City's narrow alleys. In those alleys swirled gossip. A silver queen walking the twisted market of the Silkhead, buying sweet wine for beggar children. Unsullied training with Dornish spearmen in dusty yards, bronze clashing with unsullied spears. Dothraki horse lords racing down the Strait of the Sisters, laughter trailing like banners. Within cool chambers, Daenerys convened councils. Tyrion drafted parchment after parchment, levies, grain tithes, ship manifests. Varys's whispers flowed in like subterranean streams. Lords in the Reach restless. Euron Greyjoy's black sails sighted off the stepstones. Highgarden's rose wilted by internal strife. Yet of King's Landing only rumors. Cersei's last raven had boasted of a new fleet, gold-clad and eager. Qyburn's experiments birthed wildfire reserves hidden beneath the city. Jaime Lannister had not been seen beyond the Red Keep's walls for months. One dawn, the dragons rose shrieking over the Sea of Dorne. Rhaegal plummeted and seized a great devilfish, its suckered arms flailing. Villagers along the green blood cheered while fishermen crossed themselves. The land accepted its new predators. Daenerys rode often with Aerion along dusty roads lined by blood-red cacti. The princess taught her the language of sand, the wind that sculpts dunes overnight, the mirages that lure thirst-mad travelers, the whisper of vipers beneath rocks. They shared food beneath solitary date palms, trading stories of mothers long lost and brothers beloved. Each day braided warmer trust between them. One evening, as the sun bled crimson over Sea of Dorne, they paused atop a dune overlooking the river delta. The dragons circled overhead, shadows elongated upon the rippling sand. Arianne dismounted, foot sinking into warm grains. I have heard tales of the dragon lords of old Valyria who wed brother to sister, a custom of keeping blood pure and power certain. She brushed sand from her skirts. In Dorne we do not speak of purity, we speak of choice. Her eyes glowed amber in setting sun. I would choose you, Daenerys Targaryen. The queen felt breath hitch. The world seemed to hush. Distant surf, rustle of palms, slow beat of Drogon's wings. She reached out, fingers brushing Arianne's cheek. A featherlight touch that sparked like ember on tinder. But then came a scream. Rhaegal banked abruptly, wounded cry splitting the twilight. An obsidian-shafted bolt protruded from the membrane of his right wing, barbed and smoking. Below, a mangrove thicket hid movement, dark figures fleeing in slender skiffs toward the deeper channel. Chaos erupted. Dothraki riders thundered downslope. Dornish bowmen knocked arrows. Drogon shrieked wrath, descending in a torrent of flame that turned reeds to ash. Yet skiffs vanished into river gloom. Rhaegal landed hard, wings buckling. Daenerys rushed to him, hands gentle on scalding scales. Green blood oozed around the bolt. Missandei appeared with knives heated in braziers. The Unsullied formed a protective ring. Arianne clutched Daenerys' shoulder. "Scorpion bolt," the princess muttered. "My uncle used such during the Greyjoy rebellion. Ironborn make them." Daenerys' jaw tightened. Or Cersei's engineers. She remembered Qyburn's rumored scorpions. King's Landing's iron sting reaching even here. When the bolt was withdrawn and Rhaegal's wound bound in linen soaked with dragonfire resin, Daenerys stood in the wind's mournful howl and felt a fissure open. Danger had arrived sooner than she wished. Still, Dorne's red mountains loomed like guardians at her back. She turned to Arianne. "Fire and sand must stand together, or both will be blown away." Arianne took her hand. "I will summon every bannerman. Sun and spear are yours." Their fingers interlaced, promise sealed in blood and flame. Months crawled, and Sunspear transformed into a forge. Armories rang day and night. Crossbow strings waxed. Dornish smiths hammered copper scales for unsullied tunics adapted to scorching heat. In sandstone courtyards, Grey Worm drilled Dornish recruits in unsullied formations. Lockstep advance, shield wall pivot, spear hail countercharge. Their cries of "Har! Har!" mingled with Dornish war drums. Within the Tower of the Sun, parchment maps cluttered the council chamber. Tyrion used colored stones. Red for Targaryen forces, orange for Dornish, black for rumored Lannister hosts, blue for the Reach's uncertain allegiance. Supply routes traced along the Mander and Rose Road. Ships built at Planky Town now flew the three-headed dragon quartered with the Sunspear, a new sigil of alliance. One dawn, a red priestess arrived from Volantis. Mocha, iron-haired, eyes blazing orange. She prostrated herself before Daenerys. "The Lord of Light has shown me visions. Night's darkness devouring the west, only Dragonflame holding it at bay. You are Azor Ahai reborn." She begged to preach among Dornish towns. Doran granted limited leave, wary of fire cults sparking rebellion among already fiery folk. Meanwhile, ravens from the north spoke of Jon Snow crowned king beyond Winterfell's snows. Rumors of White Walkers stirred again, but sounded distant in Dornish heat. Daenerys filed them among many tasks yet undone. Under star-strewn skies, Daenerys and Arianne walked the palace gardens. They spoke of inheritance laws. The Dornish allowed women equal claim, a balm to Daenerys's bruised memories of usurpers. They recounted childhood games. Daenerys hiding from Viserys in the narrow streets of Pentos, Arianne racing Nymeria sand along the Broken Arm. Slowly the gulf between dragon and desert closed until hearts brushed like wings in flight. On the eve of the Feast of Brightwater, Daenerys sat alone in her chambers. Moonlight bathed scrolls on her desk. Oaths of fealty from House Ironwood, Blackmont, Jourdain. She dipped quill in ink, wrote her name with flourished sigils. Yet uncertainty gnawed. Forging a realm meant forging herself anew. She rose, crossed to the balcony. Below, The city lamps glimmered. Out across the bay, Drogon's silhouette perched upon the tower's crown. Flames suddenly roared skyward, yellow tongues licking at the night. Far off toward the harbor, pillars of fire rose from warehouses. Screams carried on wind. Daenerys' heart jolted. Sabotage. She raced through corridors as bells clanged alarm. Aerion met her at the stairwell, sword unsheathed. Together they descended to the Shadow City, Grey Worm and unsullied in step, sand snakes flanking like twin vipers. The fires devoured 3 granaries. Under torchlight, they found charred corpses bearing the sigil of House Hightower, a lighthouse crown. One survivor, half-burned, croaked that mercenaries out of Old Town had infiltrated disguised as stevedores, paid in gold and promises of Lannister pardon. Daenerys stood amid smoldering wheat, smoke stinging her eyes, and understood Cersei's reach extended beyond scorpion bolts. Starve the dragons. Starve the war. When dawn came, ash lay thick as snowfall across Sunspear. Daenerys convened her captains in the shadow of the broken granaries. "My enemies believe flame is my greatest strength," she said, voice hoarse. "They strike at what fire cannot protect. Food, water, people. So we must become more than fire." Tyrion nodded. "And more than sand. Fire alone burns out. Sand alone slips through fingers. But glass, the union of flame and sand, endures." He held up a shard of black glass fused from last night's blaze. "Let this alliance be glass. Tempered, sharp, unbreaking. A ripple of agreement." From that day, carpenters reinforced storehouses with stone. Unsullied patrolled breadlines. Dornish lords vowed double tithes. Together they rebuilt. The wedding was set for the first full moon of the new year, chosen not as concession, but proclamation. 2 queens, 2 realms, binding north and south in defiance of iron crowns. The High Septon in Old Town raged against blasphemy. The faith militant rattled swords, but ravens bearing charred feathers delivered his letters, to show what became of those who threatened dragons. Still, Daenerys sent back gold for orphans of the father and mother, mercy and menace in equal measure. Sunspear bloomed in celebratory hues, banners of red on gold intertwined with black on orange, desert roses strewn over streets, fountains dyed crimson by beetroot and saffron. Atop the Tower of the Sun, Drogon roared approval when musicians practiced Dornish drums and Myrinese flutes in unison. On the morning of the vows, Daenerys bathed in lemon-scented water poured by Missandei. Her gown, woven in secret by Dornish seamstresses, shimmered orange-red, its bodice embroidered with tiny dragons whose wings became suns at her waist. Aerion donned a flowing gown of black orange pepper silk, slit high to reveal sun-inked leg tattoos depicting Nymeria arriving in Dorne centuries ago. They met in the palace of the Water Gardens where a reflecting pool mirrored sky and blossoms. Prince Doran presided, though confined to his wheeled chair. He spoke of Nymeria, of Elia, of oaths broken and mended. In sight of sun and stone, salt and flame, Dorne pledges itself to the Dragon Queen. Daenerys took Aerion's hands. "Blood of my blood," she whispered in Valyrian. Aerion answered in the tongue of the Rhoynar, "Heart of my heart." They sealed the promise with a kiss that sent cheers rolling across terraces, through gardens, down into the streets where small folk danced and doves alighted. Atop the tower, Drogon, Regal, and Viserion launched spirals of flame high into the noon sky, intertwining ribbons of red, green, and gold. The smoke formed a single vast spear pointing north. Yet war waits for no vows. 3 days after the nuptials, a desperate raven reached Sunspear. Euron Greyjoy's Iron Fleet, allied with Cersei, had seized the Stepstones and now blockaded Blackwater Bay. King's Landing stockpiled wildfire. Rumors said the Mad King's caches had been found and multiplied tenfold. Meanwhile, the Reach split between Lady Olenna's loyalists, who whispered of bending the knee to Daenerys, and new Lord Mace's son Willis, who courted Cersei's gold. Daenerys gathered her war council in the Hall of the Painted Sands. Glass candles flickered pale green. Maps sprawled across a low table of driftwood encased in clear resin. Tyrion tapped the stepstones. Without breaking Euron's line, We cannot land near King's Landing. We could sail up the Mander, but that leaves us exposed to Arbor fleets loyal to Tyrell factions. Grey Worm suggested a three-pronged approach, Unsullied by land crossing the Prince's Pass to Stormlands, Dothraki sweeping across the Red Mountains into Reach, Dragonstrike on the Stepstones themselves. But the dragons alone could not hold the sea. They must rest, hunt, heal. Arianne laid a Sunspear token on the map. Tumbleton sits unguarded now that the Hightowers sent their levies east. If we secure it, we gain the Mander and half the Reach's breadbasket. Doran's voice, weak but clear, advised caution. Strike swift, not wide, or we bleed power on too many fronts. Daenerys listened, memory stirring of Yora's lessons. Rhaegar believed in measured grace. Robert believed in force. She must be both harp and hammer. At last she spoke. We march through the Prince's Pass with 10,000 Unsullied and 30,000 Dornish spears. Dothraki ride ahead to raid Kingswood outposts, drawing Lannister strength south. Meanwhile, our fleet sails around Cape Wrath to land near Storm's End and seize it before Euron can respond. Drogon will burn his ships if he pursues. Tyrion exhaled. A bold gamble. Fire and sand, she said. Glass tempered. In the days that followed, armies gathered across Dorne. Standards wheeled in the hot wind, sun and spear, three-headed dragon, sigils of ironwood boars and Dane falling stars. Dothraki Khalasars thundered across dry riverbeds, shrieks filling the oven air. Before departure, a ceremony beneath the columns of Sunspear's old armory consecrated the alliance. Arianne unveiled a new banner, Black Field, a blazing red dragon coiled around a gold sunspear. She named it the Phoenix Standard, reborn in flame and sand. Daenerys addressed her hosts. Long have our enemies claimed dragons are storms made flesh, impossible to rule. Yet you stand with me, showing the realm that fire can be guided, not by chains but by choice. We march not as conquerors but as liberators. Cheering followed, echoing off palace walls. That night, under a moon fat with promise, Daenerys and Arianne shared quiet on a balcony scented with night-blooming jessamine. Far below, torches traced snaking lines as so. Lyres prepared to march at first light. The hush held weight of farewell. Arianne laid her head on Daenerys' shoulder. When you ride north, I will govern Sunspear and keep supply flowing. Yet my heart rides with you. Daenerys pressed a kiss to her hair. In victory I return, and together we will reshape the realm. Do not let wildfire steal your dragons, Arianne whispered, nor cold counsels steal your mercy. Morning came crimson. The gates of Sunspear yawned, and armies poured out like molten bronze. Dothraki thunder shook the wine-red dawn. Dornish war horns keened. Unsullied marched in perfect phalanx, shields glinting. From the highest tower, Arianne watched while holding the Phoenix Standard. Beside her, Drogon leapt into the sky, a great furnace winging above the vanguard. Daenerys rode beneath on a white-gray Dornish courser, silver hair streaming. She did not look back, for dragons do not mourn the dusk when dawn awaits. Thus began the Fire and Sand campaign, a blaze that would scour stone and melt crowns. Queens wrote a new saga across parchments of sky and desert, inked in smoke and blood, tempered in glass. The sun had scarcely lifted its rim above the jag-toothed crown of the Red Mountains when the vanguard rolled forward, a whispering tide of copper and steel slipping through the Prince's Pass. Clouds of ochre dust rose behind the unsullied phalanxes, drifting over the narrow camel path like incense in a sepulchre. From her position atop a dune-colored courser, Daenerys watched columns of Dornish spearmen, ironwood crossbowmen, and Dane lancers coil through the winding defile until the living stream vanished beneath overhanging cliffs. Every tap of spear but on sun-baked stone echoed, a solemn percussion that steadied her breathing. Grey Worm rode beside her, awkward in a saddle but unshakable in command, while Dario Naharis galloped ahead with a detachment of outriders, singing some bawdy Tyroshi tune about a saffron-skinned courtesan and a knife made of moonstone. Dothraki scouts loped along the ridges above, silhouettes wavering through heat haze like spirits half-remembered from campfire tales. From the valley floor, their distant ululations drifted down. Calls to warn of scree slopes, of horned mountain goats clattering across ledges, of nothing more dangerous than the searing sky. Yet even nothing could become dread in the stillness between peaks. Stone faces loomed on either side of the convoy, ancient giants brooding, ready to hurl boulders or avalanche at a careless shout. Daenerys felt every heartbeat in her throat. She recalled tales of robbers called the Vulture Kings who once preyed on pilgrims here, and of the mountain clans who answered only to spears of their own forging. But today her banners flew unsullied. On every gust of wind, the black and gold phoenix snapped, dragon coiled about a blazing sun, shimmering like molten glass. By noon they reached the pasture, an oasis valley shorn of trees by centuries of goat herds. On a rise that overlooked tufts of withered grass, Tyrion waited outside a billowing command tent. Sweat pasted his lion-yellow hair to his brow, yet his smile rang bright as a newly minted stag. "No ambush," he announced. "My coin remains safely in my purse, and as I value coin more than life, you may trust the pass is clear, for now." She dismounted, sending a plume of dust swirling. "Even Vulture Kings know better than to feast on dragon flesh," she said, though her gaze lingered on the ridges, wary. A distant roar answered, as if Drogon had sensed the boast. The great shadow cut across the sky, banking once, then climbing sunward until he was little more than a shimmer of obsidian in the blue. His brothers followed, wings thrumming as one. Their presence lent courage to men who still doubted the ground beneath them. Tyrion gestured to a map spread on a folding table. "Scouts confirm a Lannister garrison at Nightsong, 400 strong, maybe 5. Too little to bar our path, but too many to ignore." A wooden dragon carved of ebony marked Daenerys' host. "Take the castle and the Mander floodplain lies open." Grey Worm traced the route with a mailed finger. "Nightsong sits upon a hill ring. Unsullied shield wall will advance. Dornish skirmishers flank. Dragons strike from sky. Simple. Simple is good," Tyrion agreed. He plucked a wineskin from the table, took a long draught, and wiped his mouth with the sleeve of his threadbare silk doublet. "Though I pray their lord has the wisdom to yield before Drogon recites a fiery sermon." Daenerys tugged her riding glove snug. "If Lord Caron would rather burn than bend, he shall have his wish." She felt no thrill in the words, only the steady calm of decision. Fire or oath? The choice rested with those who barred her. 2 days later, Nightsong rose from the horizon, a finger of granite capped by walls the color of tarnished silver. From the surrounding fields, barley stubble waved in a sun-withered sea. Farmers paused mid-harvest, shading eyes as a serpentine dust plume announced the arrival of war. Bells tolled thrice within the ramparts. Black and red pennons tipped with sun-spear standards unfurled before the gatehouse. Whether to welcome or to threaten, none could say at a distance. Dario returned at dusk, cheeks wind-burned. Caron hoists his own banner and the stag of Baratheon, though the crowned lion is nowhere. He grinned, a flash of gold tooth in lamplight. He'll treat, though his knees knock like castanets. Dawn negotiations convened beneath the gatehouse. Archlord Donnell Caron stood flanked by 2 bannerless knights, fine armor dulled by hurried scouring. His eyes, dark pools under a brow slick with sweat, shifted from Grey Worm's silent legion to Dornish infantry lounging against pavises, to the vast wings of Drogon circling overhead. When Daenerys rode forward, silver hair loose about her shoulders, the young lord bowed so low his steel gorget scraped dust. "My lady, your grace, I meant no insult barring the gate," he stammered. "The queen in King's Landing demands loyalty still. And yet I sit a queen before you too," she replied. "One who brings grain from Dorne, trading coin from the free cities, justice for children slain in royal intrigues. Tell me, Lord Caron, whose coin pays your garrison, and from whose fields your people feed?" He blanched. "Our grain stores are near empty. The river floods ruined last spring's sowing. The crown promised relief, but none came." Tyrion produced a parchment bearing Doran's seal. "Relief and protection," if Nightsong joins the Phoenix Alliance. Refuse, and wildfire stockpiled in the capital shall be the least of your jeopardies." Lord Karen's reply came ragged. "Open our gates and spare the small folk. They have suffered enough." He unsheathed his sword, reversed the blade, and offered hilt first. "I bend the knee." Heat bled from Daenerys' tension. She accepted his sword, then returned it. "Rise as my lord. Feed your people from our caravans. Gather riders to patrol the Stormlands. Bandits will blossom like weeds once word spreads. Should King's Landing demand your head, send word." A dragon answers swiftly. There, in the dry moat, Nightsong bound its fate to hers. For a fortnight, the army camped along the Mander's tributaries, tongues of fertile land thrusting north from Reach borders. Grain wagons rattled in from Sunspear, escorted by sand snakes who braided children's hair with scarlet ribbons and taught archery to boys who had never knocked an arrow. Dornish water carriers shared skins of sweet red with Westerosi field hands. In return, they learned crude songs of the Stormlands, sung in lilting baritones round campfires. Cultures mingled, suspicion easing as wine and honey cakes flowed. But peace fermented danger. One humid night, silhouettes slipped through hedgerows behind the baking sheds. A sentry shouted once before a crossbow bolt cut the cry short. Flames blossomed beneath canvas storehouses. Tar-soaked hay bales ignited, sending towers of black smoke spiraling skyward. Panic rippled. Unsullied horns blared, deep brassy moans that rattled the ribs. Dothraki leapt half-naked from bedrolls, braids lashing as they dashed toward the glow. Daenerys dashed from her pavilion barefoot, orange silk nightgown clinging damp to her skin. She reached the grain yard as Grey Worm formed a defensive ring. Inside, 2 storehouses were already ablaze. Flaming thatch collapsed inward, embers swirling like mad fireflies. Screams issued from a third where slaves turned free quartermasters had bunked. Without thinking, she plunged into the smoke, cloak flapping behind like a comet's tail. The air scalded her lungs. She stumbled through heat haze to find a Dornish girl pinned beneath a beam, sparks dancing across her hair. Daenerys wrapped the child in the cape, hoisted timber with a grunt, and dragged her clear. A second explosion, a hidden cask of lamp oil, hurled shards of flaming wood across the yard, narrowly missing them both. Grey Worm's shadow fell over her. He grappled a burning rafter aside while unsullied passed buckets of river water in urgent relays. Drogon screamed above, but Daenerys shrieked, "No flame!" A single misjudged breath of dragonfire and the camp would vanish. By dawn, embers smoked quietly. 2 score sacks of grain lay charred. For unsullied dead, 7 commoners burned. Tyrion sifted through ashes with an iron poker, found a brass clasp shaped like a kraken tentacle. "Euron's fingers grow long," he muttered. "Too long." She knelt beside him, soot masking silver hair. "No more wheat lost. Triple the guard. And shorten our tether," the dwarf advised. "The longer we sit, the fatter we grow for his harpoon." That day she ordered the host north to the storm-lashed marchlands. The column flowed like obsidian glass down the King's Road, leaving Nightsong to mend its fields beneath the Phoenix banner. Rain greeted them beyond the rainwood, slanting like iron arrows from a leaden sky. Mud sucked at sandals, cloaks soaked heavy as chainmail. Campfires sputtered, huddled under makeshift lean-tos. Yet spirits seldom dimmed. Dothraki sang of riding storm clouds. Dornish told honey-sweet stories of lovers abandoned under waterfalls. Unsullied simply marched, rain beating on bronze like jewels. To Daenerys, the downpour felt baptismal, cleansing the smoke of burned grain. Scouts returned bearing unsettling news. Storm's End, ancient seat of House Baratheon, flew the red lion of Casterly Rock painted over a black stag. House Swan manned the walls, once loyal to Renly, now sworn to Cersei. Worse, Euron's fleet had landed cell sails along Shipbreaker Bay, their longships drawn up beneath the fortress's massive curtain walls. The castle, carved from sea-green stone, jutted into surf like a clenched fist defying gods and men alike. Its wind-bitten drum towers bristled with new-built scorpions. Tyrion eyed the siege plan grimly. Even dragons break their teeth on Storm's End, or so legend claims. Dario brushed wet hair from his eyes. Teeth? Dragons have more than teeth, imp. Grey Worm proposed a night assault. Silent, unsullied, scaling the sea tower at low tide while dragons harried the ramparts. Tyrion countered with a feint. 3 catapults dragged forward to bombard while the real blow fell inland at the postern gate. But Daenerys studied the sea charts, recalling Yora's tales of a secret cave Brienne, once used to smuggle Renly's food under Stannis' nose. She summoned Missandei, who scoured Maester records captured at Nightsong for mention of cave outlets. They found reference in a ragged margin. Cave of the Seven Mouths, nigh thrice a man's height, tide-washed, leading to lower cellars. The next tide would be at moonrise. That evening she sent Davos Seaworth, whom Tyrion's gold had found languishing in a Storm's End dungeon, freed by bribed guards, into the surf with 3 dories of Dornish swimmers stripped to loincloths, daggers clenched in teeth. Grey Worm commanded 100 unsullied poised to follow. Above, clouds roiled violet, blotting starlight. Daenerys waited inland beneath a sailcloth awning. Drogon crouched behind like a living bastion. Regal, still healing but restless, paced the strand, sniffing salt spray. Viserion perched on a weather-gnarled pine, eyes like pale moons. Time crept, each heartbeat a drum. She watched dark silhouettes vanish into breaker foam. Listened for alarms, none came. Only the thunder of surf, the hiss of slanting rain. Then, from within the castle's belly, muffled booms. Cellar doors blown inward, hinges lonely screams. Flames bloomed atop southeastern battlements. A horn blared, shrill, frantic. Unsullied rose from wet sand like bronze specters, charging the postern even as gate chains rattled. Grey Worm's voice cut through wind. Scory drows, all wings. The postern groaned. Hinges gave way. A spill of blue-plumed helms poured inside. Simultaneously Drogon leapt skyward, wings casting an eldritch shadow across foam-white crests. Daenerys mounted with practiced ease, saddle hooks locked under his ridged scales. With a command in Valyrian, he banked into driving rain, diving toward the main keep where Lannister banners snapped. Barbed scorpion bolts whickered upward. One hissed past her knee. Another clanged off Drogon's breastplate of scarlet scales. She felt the shock through stirrups. He roared, bellows that rattled slate roofs. Dracarys! She pointed at the scorpion battery. A torrent of red-orange flame jetted forth, cutting a molten swath through wooden mantlets. Gunners screamed, metal gears sagging like wax. Stone blackened. Below, Dornish spearmen surged onto the gatehouse, sun-splashed shields locking under enemy arrows. Through smoke, Daenerys glimpsed Davos waving for surrender from a crenel, a broken stag banner clutched in his one good hand. Resistance crumbled within an hour. Lord Borr's swan was hauled from the great hall, helm dented, eyes dazed. He bent knee before the queen under Storm's reign, while Euron's cell sails fled pell-mell into their boats, only to find Regal gliding low, torching hulls to charred splinters. At dawn the storm broke, leaving pearl-gray mist rippling across still tide pools. Storm's End stood unconquered no more. Its towers flew the phoenix of fire and sand. As first light gilded wet battlements, Daenerys climbed the drum tower parapet to watch orange banners rise. The wind off Shipbreaker Bay snapped thirsty and cold, but she felt heat in her chest. Not merely triumph, but momentum. Dario joined her, dripping seawater. The castle yields, but the lioness still prowls. He tapped the stone with a jeweled dagger. What next? She looked north, where clouds banked like a wall behind King's Landing's invisible spires. Now we cut the lion's tail, but Euron's fleet will learn the fury of the sea and the sky. She motioned to Tyrion ascending behind. Prep the ships we captured. Greyjoy sails make fine tinder. Tyrion rubbed a bruise spreading beside his eye. I'll see them fitted with wildfire jars filched from the castle stores. Nothing like irony to warm a heart. She gripped the parapet, felt age-cold stone beneath her palm. Stone that had endured Nymeria's Roiner, Aegon's dragons, Roberts's rebellion. Now it served her. In that moment she sensed the realm's pulse quicken. Word racing along greenways and river fords. Daenerys has Storm's End. Daenerys marches north, dragons in the sky. Each rumor would gather new swords, new fear, new hope. And in Sunspear, Arianne would receive her raven sealed with yet another victory, though danger crept as ever in shadow. Far to the south, across desert sweeps where sand sang in blistering currents, Arianne Martell strode through the vaulted archive chamber beneath Sunspear's spear tower. Scrollants of white ravens circled as maesters busied with candles and quills. She nodded to Master Illyrio, newly appointed castellan, before descending spiral stairs lit by lambent glass spheres. In the hidden vault beneath, sandstone turned cool and still. At its center stood a mosaic dais depicting the Roynish maneuver upriver, the first Dornish wedding recorded. Fashioned in crimson and gold tile, she pressed a sigil stone, three-headed dragon interlaced with sunspear, and a concealed panel ground open, revealing a narrow corridor slanting downward into black. Torch in hand, she slipped inside. The passage exhaled dusty breath. Spider strands grazed her cheeks. She emerged in a chamber carved, it seemed, by flowing water eons past. There waited Mocha, the red priestess, scarlet silk hood shadowing ember eyes. She bowed. Princess Queen. Arianne accepted the title without pause. Report. The sons of the Harpy stir in Meereen again, Mocha whispered. Golden Company sells words gather in Volantis, their captains receiving coin from Braavosi bankers who speak for Cersei's hand. Arianne's jaw clenched. Too many fronts, yet we cannot recall the dragons. She retrieved a parchment marked with coded sigils, Missandei cipher, detailing rumors of plague on Lys and Iron Bank loans. Danger in numbers. Light and shadow war eternal, the priestess intoned. But the great other rises in the north. I fear Lannisters are mere flickers of candle before that wind. Then we must douse candles quickly, Arianne said. She resealed the panel, resolved to dispatch raven couriers, not by sky, but by sea skiff, circumventing Greyjoy pickets, to warn Daenerys of the cell's word tide. Outside, in the courtyard, children chased lizards, their laughter chasing gloom. She looked toward the throne room where Doran's empty chair sat draped in silks of mourning. The prince had drifted into sleep 3 nights past and had not woken, breathing ever shallower. If he passed, the Sunspear crown would pass to her, Arianne of fire and sand. She whispered, "Hold fast, father. Let the realm know one peace before you go." Storm's End proved stepping stone to a greater gambit. Under cover of night Daenerys's fleet, 36 galleys seized from Euron, refitted and crewed by Stormlander loyalists, slipped from Shipbreaker Bay's embrace. Each mast bore lanterns shrouded in green glass, masking their glow upon black waters. In cargo holds nestled ceramic pots of wildfire, sealed in wax and stored in hammocks of wet hemp. Above, Regal and Viserion scouted in widening arcs, Drogon soared unseen, twin moons glinting on his dorsal plates. Greyjoy longships patrolling the gullet never glimpsed the phantoms sliding past. By dawn, the black cliffs of Massey's Hook fell astern. Ahead lay the stepstones, rocky islets like dragon's teeth, each sporting timber towers, ballistae, and red-painted shields of House Lannister flown by iron-born reavers. Tyrion weighed charts, counting currents that could smash unwary hulls. "We hit the outposts simultaneously," he said. "If one garrison lights a beacon, the rest scuttle." On a sky cloaked in violet pre-dawn, Daenerys mounted Drogon once more. Below-deck sailors prayed to the Seven, the Roiner, the many-faced god, any that might spare them Wildfire's kiss. The fleet split, 5 galleys each toward Bloodstone, Driftstone, and Grey Gallows, laden with silent archers and wildfire kegs. As the first rosy edge of sun breached water, Drogon banked into a shriek-born dive, flames roaring forth to shatter the wooden beacon of Bloodstone Island. Splinters cartwheeled, guards scattered beneath a hail of molten debris. At that instant, Catapults fitted to Stormlander prows hurled clay pots in jagged arcs. They shattered upon ramparts, disgorging sticky green infernos that clung, burned, refused water's quench. The screams that followed were muffled by wind and Sue. RF, merciful for the ears that heard. Some attackers wept. Others roared vengeance for burned wheat and murdered kin. The assault lasted hours but felt seconds. By mid-morning, Stepstone's flags lay charred, their towers gutted. Survivors leapt into sea rather than face dragon shadow. Daenerys hovered over the last outpost, Grey Gallows, where a defiant Kraken banner still flew. With a word she unleashed Drogon's breath. The wooden keep exploded in a geyser of steam as stone boiled saltwater. She tasted ash on her tongue. Victory had flavor now, a mixture of soot, salt, and something metallic she could not name. When the fleet regrouped, losses were miraculously light. 2 galleys holed by hidden reef, a score of men burned or drowned. But the sea road to Blackwater Bay lay open like the parted jaws of some leviathan inviting them in. Tyrion watched the smoke pillars recede astern. Cersei's harbor chain and scorpions matter little if no fleet remains to man them. Grey Worm concurred. Unsullied spear points will pierce city walls while dragons burn ships in bay. Daenerys laid a hand on the rail. The wind carried chill memory of King's Landing's bells, of Mad King whispers, of wildfire beneath streets. She vowed then, fire cleansed but could also devour innocence. When she reached the Red Keep, she would temper flame with justice, or risk becoming the monster whispered in every prayer. Full sail, she ordered. To Dragonstone. The galleys turned north, phoenix banners snapping like cracked glass in seawind. Dragonstone's black towers welcomed them with sullen silence. No Lannister garrison waited, only a skeleton keep abandoned in haste. Dragonglass daggers, Visenya's treasury, still lay undisturbed upon dusty wooden racks in the stone cellars. Regal roost on the highest turret, his wounded wing mending in briny air. The castle, older than memory, seemed to breathe a smoky sigh as Targaryen footsteps echoed once more. In the chamber of the painted table, she convened her war council, flickering torchlight casting world-long shadows over carved rivers and keep contours. Tyrion circled the great map. Our next stroke splits the Lion's Pride. A siege of King's Landing by land, blockade by sea, propaganda by raven to every malcontent within the capital. We promise bread. Cersei offers fear. Grey Worm pointed at the Kingsroad artery. Unsullied march at night, dig trenches, plant caltrops. Lannister sorties bleed. Dario suggested bribing the gold cloaks, many of whom had kin in the Reach now starving under Tyrell misrule. Varys, returned that morning by swift cutter, reported dissent among small folk. Rumor claimed Cersei brewed wildfire beneath septs to sacrifice non-believers. Daenerys listened, then spoke. Before we ring their walls with steel, send ravens from Storm's End and Dragonstone. Offers of pardon to every knight who opens a gate or lays down arms. Plant seeds of doubt. When the time comes, the city may surrender without need of fire. Tyrion's smile held melancholy. A queen who would spare rather than scorch. My father would splutter in his grave, were there remains to splutter. Yet all knew Cersei might choose flames over surrender, as Aerys once did. And wildfire would not heed pardons. That night Daenerys climbed a narrow stair to the outer wall facing Blackwater Bay. She could see King's Landing's distant glow, a smear of yellow beyond the dark water. Drogon crouched beside her, tail coiled like a serpent, wings folded. She laid a palm on his scale, rough as volcanic rock. Soon, old friend, he rumbled, nostrils venting sparks that drifted into the wind. She gazed again at that far halo of light. Somewhere beyond those walls, children slept, never guessing dragons eyed their dreams. Somewhere, Cersei sharpened her madness. Daenerys whispered to the sea, to the night, to herself, "Let glass endure." In King's Landing the bells tolled thrice, mourning shrouds drawn over sept windows. Cersei Lannister stood atop Maegor's holdfast, wildfire-green eyes surveying her river. Smoke scars from Euron's burned fleet still marred the bay. She clenched her goblet until Dornish red sloshed upon white knuckles. Qyburn shuffled close. "My queen, new vats of the substance are prepared. As you commanded, they rest beneath the flea-bottom granaries. Should the dragons venture too near, then light them," she hissed. "Let every beggar burn if it saves my crown." Across the yard, a cage hung from a crane. Inside, a frail maester moaned. The queen glanced at him with contempt. "He claimed dragons do not exist," she scoffed. "Now he may watch the sky prove him wrong." She turned back to the bay, wind-tangling golden hair. "Send ravens to every lord still loyal. Hold their castles or watch them fall to Dragonfire and my wrath alike. We will meet the usurper at the walls and teach her why lions rule gods and men." Far-off thunder rolled. She shivered, though the night was hot. In the freezing north, wind howled over the battlements of Winterfell. Jon Snow, wrapped in black fur, peered south along the King's Road. Ghost padded beside him, fur ruffling. The words of the last raven from Dragonstone weighed heavy. Dragons allied with Dorne, marching on the capital stepstones aflame. Jon's breath plumed. "If the queen takes the throne," he murmured to Davos, who stood shivering nearby, "her dragons may be our only hope against the dead." Davos nodded, blowing on stiff fingers. "Aye, but reaching her amid southern war won't be easy, and northerners remember fire as fondly as they do Southron kings." Jon rested a hand on Ghost's scruff. "Then we must show them a greater fear. The army of the dead will march before the first leaf falls. We need Dragonfire at the wall, or all wars of men mean nothing." He stared south, imagining 3 dragons streaking above snowfall, their shadows a promise and a peril. Somewhere between winter and war, between ice and fire, destiny forged a blade yet unseen. At Dragonstone's shore, Daenerys knelt alone, waves lapping at basalt toes. She scooped black sand, volcanic grains like ground glass. "Let glass endure," Tyrion had said, "union of fire and sand." In her palm, the grains shimmered between moonlight and orange glow of torches along the quay. She thought of Arianne, of Sunspear's lemon groves, of a future writ by 2 queens. Thought of children yet unborn who might fly dragons above a realm knit not by fear but by choice. She let the sand pour through her fingers. Each grain fell like a life the war might claim. But the handful that remained, those she would guard no matter the cost. Behind, Drogon's breath steamed in the darkness, warm and steady. Ahead, Blackwater Bay mirrored the stars, silent witness to tides of power older than dragons or men. She rose, brushed sand from her knees, and turned toward the painted table where strategies awaited. Dawn would find her ready. The war of glass had begun its final shaping. Fire met sand, sand steadied fire, and in the Forge of Realms, a queen walked unburnt, bearing both. The gray-green waters off Dragonstone glimmered beneath a wan morning sun, each ripple rip-slashed by the cold breath of autumn. Gulls wheeled high above the saddle-shaped island, their shrieks tangling with the groan of anchor chains as supply cogs crept into the cove. Daenerys stood on the wind-scored terrace outside the chamber of the painted table, cloak snapping like a dragon's wing. The basalt parapet felt slick under her palm, damp with sea mist that clung to every surface and left the air smelling of iron and salt. Below, a squad of unsullied, unloaded amphorae of Dornish red, sacks of Sunspear saffron, and barrels of hardtack baked in Storm's End's newly fired ovens. The black harborside rock was alive with motion. Gray tunics flitting among arched caverns, Dothraki herding captured goats toward cliffside pens, Stormlander carpenters hauling casks of pitch to repair salt-bitten hulls. Over all loomed Drogon atop the high tower, black wings mantled against the breeze, scarlet eyes tracking every movement like a lazy sun god. Rhaegal clung to a lower spire, still favoring his half-mended wing. Viserion, ever curious, glided across the courtyard to snatch half a goat from a distracted handler, landing with a bone-splintering crunch that made squires scurry for cover. Daenerys watched but did not chide. The dragon's appetites had grown with their victories, and fear, properly seasoned, served as seasoning for loyalty. Footsteps echoed behind. Tyrion Lannister emerged wrapped in a sable-lined cloak far too grand for his patched doublet. He carried a roll of parchment studded with ribbons. "Your Grace," he said, tucking wind-blown hair behind one ear. "Ravens from Bitterbridge, Highgarden, and Old Oak. The Reach is tearing itself apart faster than we can march to claim it." Daenerys accepted the scrolls. Seals bore symbols once proud but now confused. Half lions, half roses, some stamped with a phoenix overlay. She broke the first, scanning quickly. "Willis Tyrell calls me Kinslayer for burning Lannister ships that carried Reachmen conscripts," she murmured. "Yet Lady Olenna sends congratulations for putting the lions in their proper cage." Tyrion's smile soured. The old goat always did have a taste for barbed compliments. More importantly, remnants of Randall Tarley's forces now follow his son Dickon. They've seized Bitterbridge, and rumor claims they court Euron Greyjoy for river transport. She felt a chill unrelated to the wind. If the Reach unites under Dickon, Cersei gains grain enough to outlast any siege. We cannot allow that. Agreed. Alas, our host cannot be in two places. Tyrion pointed north where a charcoal smudge blurred the horizon. King's Landing still blocks every road to power. He unrolled a smaller parchment inked in a different hand, sharp, angular, precise. A raven from Sunspear Arian. He passed it gently. Daenerys recognized the spidery script at once. "My son Queen, father drifts near shadow, but the castle holds steady. Selsword whispers coil in Volantis. The Golden Company may sail on the next full tide. I dispatch spies to Sabathian's holdfasts. Should they move, we shall know. The starlight is bright in Dorne, yet I feel its cold kiss. Return victorious and warm our garden again. Arian," she traced the words. "Doran dying would crown her wife Princess of Dorne uncontested, but also leave her alone amid the vipers circling Sunspear's marble court. I should ride south," she whispered, "and abandon the war's fulcrum?" Tyrion shook his head gently. "The best aid you can give Arian is a throne secure enough that no viper dares bare its fangs." Daenerys clenched the parchment until knuckles blanched. "Then we must move." "On the morrow," Tyrion said. "The first siege train marches. We'll need 3 more days to finish fitting the wildfire casks on the Dromons. Grey Worm has drawn trench plans to hem the city's southern approach, while the dragons harry the bay." As if summoned, the commander appeared below, leading 3 Dornish engineers in heated gesticulation. Logs thicker than a man's torso, felled from rainwood, lay stacked like giants' dice. Siege towers rose skeleton brittle beside them, waiting for iron shrouds from Storm's End smithies. Daenerys's gaze drifted east, beyond the black arm of Massey's Hook where whitecaps glimmered. Somewhere past that horizon the wall trembled beneath silent skies. She remembered Jon Snow's letter. Whites at Eastwatch, hard home shadows, the Night King's march. She touched the dragonglass dagger at her belt, a gift from Samwell Tarley's raven-carried parcel. Fire to fight ice, he had written, glass for every blade the night would raise. As if echoing her thought, a horn's mournful note drifted across the courtyard, trumpeted from the gatehouse. A galley had been sighted, beating toward the harbor under a flag-quartered yellow sun and black direwolf on white. Her breath caught. The north, the snowblind, a sleek, shy, maid-built carrack stripped of armament for speed, coasted into the lee of Dragonstone with sails reefed. Northern guardsmen lined her rail, spears reversed in gesture of peace. At the prow stood Jon Snow, black cloak whipped by wind. Beside him loomed Tormund Giantsbane, beard spangled with salt, and Ser Davos Seaworth, one-handed, steady as a tiller. The direwolf banner cracked overhead. Below it hung a field of orange, Dorne's honor stitched hurriedly to show fellowship. Daenerys descended the cliff path flanked by Grey Worm and Missandei. Drogon shadowed her footsteps above, perch to perch. When Jon set foot on basalt, she met him halfway across the slippery rock. He bowed slightly, king to queen, equals in title but not yet in trust. "Your Grace," he said, voice rough from sea chill. "Winter has marched sooner than tales foretold. The dead are real, and they gather every night beyond the wall. I have come to beg your fire. She studied him, dark curls damp, gray eyes haunted. I believe you, she answered. I have seen slaves risen by sorcery in Astapor, but the Iron Throne stands between my dragons and your war. Then let us burn that throne to forge a shield, he replied. Behind him, Tormund huffed a laugh. He means bend tin crowns, lass. Dead men care little for who sits gilded seats. Davos stepped forward, holding a small locked box. A token, your grace. He unclasped the lid to reveal a fragment of a pale blue hand still encased in ice, fingers curled like claws. Severed from a white south of Eastwatch. It does not rot. It does not burn easy. Salt nor steel stop it long. Only fire, we've found, or dragonglass. And the wall's ancient spells which fail. Daenerys reached but stopped inches above the icy flesh. Cold radiated like winter's breath. She closed the lid gently. Proof enough. Tyrion arrived, puffing down the path, ever wary of slipping. He eyed Jon. King Snow, have you come to treat with our queen about corpses or crowns? Both, Lord Tyrion. The dead march, but the living must choose how they stand. He offered a sealed parchment, a letter from Lady Sansa of Winterfell, with the Lord's impressions of your claim. Daenerys accepted it without comment. Negotiations convened that night in the chamber of the painted table. Candles threw dragon shadow flickers across carved rivers. Jon stood on the section depicting the neck, while Daenerys leaned near the Blackwater. The dead will breach the wall by first frost, he said, pointing at Eastwatch's carved cliff. My brother Bran sees them in dreams too vivid to doubt. If they take the north unchecked, all this, he gestured to the table, 7 kingdoms, becomes their feast. Tyrion tapped Casterly Rock. A compelling doom, but our wine turns to vinegar if we ignore the lioness presently sharpening claws. He surveyed Jon. Will the north march south with us and secure a swift end, freeing dragons to fly against the cold? Jon exhaled. The northern bannermen remember Targaryen fire on Harrenhal stone and the Starks' burnt bones. They will not march for a queen they barely know while their own lands tremble. Yet they will not hinder her either, if she pledges dragons north once the capital falls. Daenerys traced a path from Dragonstone's stylized peak to Winterfell's wolf-etched tower. You ask me to take King's Landing and then abandon it? Hold it if you can, Jon said. But send the dragons. With them, my archers armed with dragonglass, and the wall's runes, we might halt the dead. Without, no crown will matter. Tyrion frowned. Cersei's wildfire caches might matter, if she ignites half the city in spite. Then we must make her surrender swift, Daenerys stated. She looked to Missandei. Draft terms. King in the north remains independent in rule yet allied by treaty, owing dragons to his call in exchange for oath of friendship and trade. She met Jon's eyes. You need fire. I need peace behind me. Alliance, not subjugation. Jon nodded slowly. So long as peace is honored by you and your heirs, the north will stand with fire. Davos smiled faintly. Well spoken. Now we'll just need survive long enough to ink that parchment. At dawn the next day, Daenerys walked the battlements with Jon. Gulls screamed overhead. Waves canted against black stone far below. They spoke little, content with footsteps and wind, until Jon paused at a crenel to watch Drogon gliding far above. He's beautiful, Jon murmured. Mist from his breath puffed in the cold. Ghost once chased eagle shadows like that when he was a pup. Daenerys studied him. He would not flee now? Not now, Jon said softly. Not ever again. Drogon banked, sunlight flashing on crimson membranes. Jon's gaze followed with something like longing and something like fear. Dragons reminded men of power beyond measure and of fire's price. There is still ash on my hands, she said quietly. Cities I burned to end tyrants. Slavers I crucified. Some call it justice. Some call it terror. Which will the North name it? Jon considered. That depends on what you burn next. Their eyes met, the unspoken weight heavier than sea and sky combined. Preparations for the siege resumed with sharpened urgency. Unsullied companies marched nightly drills with Stormlander levies. Dornish sappers dug trial pits to collapse walls. Blacksmiths forged arrowheads of shiny dragonglass shipped from Dragonstone's volcanic veins. Jon's men learned spear formations beside bronze-helmed Dornish youth. Dothraki riders sparred with northern cavalry across the hard-packed training field, laughter mingling with bruises. One crisp evening, Daenerys joined Jon for archery practice on the south beach. Torches flickered against cliff faces. Jon loosed shafts at straw dummies. Each thwack of arrow shook coarse sand. Daenerys picked up a bow, ashen yew, lighter than the Dothraki recurve she once tried, and knocked a dragonglass arrow. She drew, muscles complaining, and released. The arrow cut the salt air and shattered on basalt feet away from target. She laughed. Perhaps I'm meant to wield dragons, not bows. Jon fetched the next arrow, placed it in her hand. Elbow higher, draw to ear, not cheek. His fingers guided her arm, momentary brush of callous skin electric in night air. She breathed, released again. The arrow hissed true, thunking dead center. She startled, then grinned like a child who'd caught her first fish. Jon smiled too, teeth white in the torchlight. Missandei cleared her throat politely from the path. Your Grace, Master Varys requests audience. Word from King's Landing. They found Varys in the map chamber, spider-thin hands clasped. My little birds within the capital sing of unrest, he murmured. Bread wagons seized by gold cloaks, rumors of plague spread to quell riots, and a wildfire demonstration that incinerated 3 slum blocks near Flea Bottom. The Queen claims rebel arson, yet whispers say her pyromancers burned their own to test new formulae. Daenerys felt nausea coil. How many dead? Scores, perhaps hundreds. Hard to count ashes. The eunuch's voice trembled with controlled anger. Cersei has recruited convict crews to man the scorpions on the walls. Promises of freedom for each dragon downed. Jon's jaw hardened. The city may starve before her pride breaks. Which is why, Tyrion said, entering with a ceramic jug of honey-spiced wine, we cannot allow a drawn-out siege. The small folk will pay first. He set the jug down with a thump. I propose we bypass her walls entirely. A secret passage exists beneath Maegor's keep. My father once used it to spirit a mistress away. It widens into caverns large Eno. Ugh for a small troop. If we send an elite unit inside to open the King's Gate, the main host can pour in before Cersei unleashes wildfire. Grey Worm nodded slowly. Unsullied can infiltrate. Jon shook his head. Let the North volunteer. We're skilled with silence in snow. Daenerys raised a hand. Enough lives risked already. I have another idea. She turned to Drogon's silhouette outside, stark against moon. Dragons can fly over walls, but not to burn the city. They can carry ropes. If we land 10 Unsullied atop the gatehouse, they can unbar the gate without torching Flea Bottom. Tyrion scratched his beard. A dragon taxi, so to speak. Risky. Scorpions on every tower. Scorpions trained downward cannot angle up, Grey Worm observed. Gatehouse sits lower than ramparts. Dragon comes from above. Drop men swift. Jon drew a breath. Make it 15. Northern Rangers climb fast. She met his gaze. And risk the gift you brought? The gift is worthless if the city falls slowly. Decision coalesced like frost. So be it, she said. On the 3rd night hence, we ride the wind. The night before departure, Daenerys penned a final letter to Arianne. Moon of my sand, we stand on Dragonstone's knife-edged shore, ready to carve a path through Lion's Hide. Jon Snow rides with me. Frost and flame have found accord. If I fall, remember the garden we dreamed beneath the lemons, and plant it for those yet unburned. If I rise, I will bring dawn south. Dany. She sealed it with wax impressed by a phoenix sigil and entrusted it to a Fleetfoot Dornish courier ship. When she left her chamber, she found Jon waiting in the corridor, armor half-fastened. He held out a folded scrap. For Sansa, he said, if I don't return, I will, she promised, tucking it inside her vambrace. But you will return. She let her fingers brush his gloved hand. A spark of courage passed between. Outside, the dragons stirred. Shafts of torchlight danced across their flanks. Grey Worm marshaled the infiltrators. 10 unsullied, 5 northerners. Gendry Rivers wielding a blacksmith's hammer. The archer Angui knotting ropes. A silent man in mottled cloak known only as the Shadow Cat. Tormund insisted on coming, muttering that walls were merely cliffs missing the courtesy of snow. They mounted ropes coiled like snakes around their torsos. Drogon lowered his neck. Scales rasped like grindstones as Daenerys climbed the saddle. Jon climbed behind, steady despite nervous sweat. Rhaegal carried Grey Worm's squad. Viserion bore the Norths. Winds smelled of brine and rain. Tyrion raised a hand in farewell. Davos made the sign of the Seven. The dragons leapt, wings cracking. Sea fell away, torches shrinking to ember points. Blackwater Bay opened below, its waters slick as oil under moon-swaddled clouds. Ahead, King's Landing sprawled, great walls stippled with lamplight, red keep crown glinting. As they neared, scorpion silhouettes appeared along ramparts. Crews worked under dim lanterns, unaware of shadows at high altitude. Drogon banked into the clouds, silent save the whisper of air over membrane. Daenerys spoke Valyrian words, slow, quiet directions, and he folded wings, diving in near silence until stone towers loomed. At the last instant, wings flared. Talons clanged upon slate tiles of the gatehouse roof. Unsullied, dismounted like water poured from a jug, rolling to their feet. Jon followed, drawing Longclaw. Moonlight kissed its pale edge. A single Lannister guard turned, mouth forming a cry. An arrow from Angui pinned it shut. Silent steps advanced. Grey Worm slipped down stairwells, twin daggers flashing once, twice. Blood pooled unseen on dark wood. Below, massive oak bars spanned the King's Gate. 2 jailers dozed at a brazier. Tormund stomped forward, hammered the first across Temple. Gendry hefted his smith sledge, drove an iron wedge, splintering the bar until the central pin popped loose. Angui sliced the bell-pull rope before alarm could ring. Shadow Cat, unseen, dragged bodies into alcoves, shutting their eyes. Outside the walls, the main host waited in trenches, shields muted. When the first bar slid free, a coded torch signal winked from the parapet. War horns answered, muffled by leather. The city held its breath unaware. Everything might have passed bloodless, had a child not wandered onto the gate yard chasing a stray cat. She froze at sight of armored strangers. Her gasp carried like trumpet blast in the hush. A crossbowman on adjacent tower spun, saw shadows. "Intruders!" he cried. Chaos erupted. Bells clanged. Scorpion crews pivoted, bolts clattering. Drogon reared, unleashing fire not at city but at tower tops. White-hot torrent that slagged Scorpion arms before they could loose. Rhaegal's fire blanketed the gate approach, a wall of flame between small folk and battle. Viserion strafed a line of watchmen, melting arrowheads mid-flight. Inside, Grey Worm rammed the final bar aside. The gates shuddered open. Unsullied phalanx surged in, shields locked. Dornish spears followed, Phoenix banner streaming. Northern foot poured behind, howling the North remembers, before they were cut off by thickening smoke. Lannister defenders scrambled, confused between flames and shadows. Some fled deeper into the city. Others fought desperately at crossroads. But the invaders were already spreading like water through cracks. Grey Worm securing Flea Bottom, Stormlanders fanning north to the Street of Steel, Dothraki riders galloping along riverfront to seize the chain tower. Drogon circled above, roaring command. Daenerys guided him to the Red Keep. Cersei's banner, Red Lion, Gold Field, fluttered defiant on King's Tower. Scorpions perched along its roof turned skyward, loosing a volley. One bolt scraped Drogon's flank, gouging scale but not penetrating. He roared, flames split by wind. Daenerys landed in Maegor's holdfast courtyard amid swirling smoke. Tyrion and Jon dismounted behind, weapons bared. Gold cloaks lined up, but seeing dragons overhead, many knelt. Ser Gregor Clegane, the giant, undead shape in mottled armor, stomped from a doorway, sword as long as a man. He advanced without words. Jon stepped, but Daenerys raised a hand. Grey Worm ran forward, spear poised. The mountain swung. Grey Worm ducked, rolled, stabbed between armored greaves. The spearhead snapped. Clegane laughed, a hollow metallic echo. Suddenly, from behind a column, Arya Stark appeared, face streaked with soot, dagger of Valyrian steel gleaming. She leapt, driving it under Clegane's helm rim. Black blood spurted. The giant staggered. Jon's eyes widened. Arya twisted, sliced again. Clegane toppled like a fell tree, armor clanging. "Hello, brother," Arya whispered to Jon, breathless. "Thought you could use a ghost in the walls." Together they stormed corridors toward the throne room. Doors burst inward. Cersei stood before the Iron Throne in black mourning gown, crown askew. Qyburn cowered behind. Beside him a pyromancer clutched a crystal vial glowing sickly green, wildfire's distilled essence. Cersei's gaze fixed on Daenerys, hatred bright as cometfall. "Dragon whore," she spat. "You think you win with swords? I win with fire." She gestured. The pyromancer hurled the vial against the marble floor. Glass shattered, green flames whooshed upward. Time slowed. Jon lunged, dragging Cersei clear of blast. The flames bloomed but did not spark the hidden caches. Qyburn's miscalculation. The chamber's stone floor too cold, dampened by recent mopping for just such experiments. Daenerys swept her cloak, flames curling harmless around dragonscale weave. Arya kicked the pyromancer headfirst into the fire. He shrieked, then was silent. Cersei clawed at Jon, snarling, but Grey Worm seized her arms. Daenerys stepped forward. "Enough," she said, voice softer than ash. "Lay down your crown." Cersei hissed, "I will never kneel to spineless doll from across the sea." Tyrion entered, crossbow leveled. "Then bleed like the rest my father bled." His hand trembled, memory flickering. Tywin on privy, bolts through belly. His voice cracked. "Surrender, sister. Spare tens of thousands." Cersei's lip curled. "Tens of thousands?" She laughed, bitter. "They mean nothing. Let them taste ash." Daenerys approached, eyes violet and ancient. "You chose ash the day you burned children to test wildfire." She raised her hand. Drogon's roar echoed through shattered windows. Cersei's resolve cracked. Her knees buckled. Crown slipped, clattered on stone. She fell sobbing. Tyrion lowered the crossbow, tears bright. Grey Worm bound her hands. Daenerys turned. "Ring the bells," she commanded. "Let the city know it is free." Outside, bells began to toll. At first hesitant, unsure, then louder, triumphant. Flames guttered on rooftops but spread no further. Dragon's fire had cauterized war rather than kindled it. As dawn bled peach across the sky, Daenerys walked the now silent throne room. The Iron Throne loomed, dark swords fused by Balyrion's breath. She felt its pull but also its poison. Instead of approaching, she lifted Aegon's crown from Tyrion's hands and set it upon the molten blade seat. "Thrones are forged for sitting, but power lives in walking," she said. She faced Jon, Arya, Grey Worm, Tyrion. "Crown the realm with justice, not iron. We will form a council, lords and commons, maesters and septas, chosen to rule until winter's shadow passes." Tyrion let out a breath. "A regency? A stewardship," she corrected. "Until ice is broken." Jon bowed his head. "Then let's ride north. Winter waits." Ravens flew from King's Landing that morning. White for peace, black for justice, orange for Dorne, gray for Winterfell. In Sunspear's lemon-scented garden, Aerion read her wife's words and wept joy. At Winterfell, Sansa studied the seal and nodded slowly. In the Citadel, Samwell grinned, turning to maps of dragonglass seams. Across the sea, the Golden Company wavered, reading of Cersei's fall and reconsidering coin. Within the Red Keep, Daenerys stood upon a balcony overlooking the freshly cleaned streets. Small folk emerged from cellars, eyes wide at phoenix banners hung where lions once snarled. Children gasped as Regal swooped low, scattering pigeons. Bakers opened shutters, scent of bread rising. Jon approached. The city begins to breathe again. Let us hope it learns to sing. She handed him the sealed decree appointing Bran Stark as Lord Protector of the South during her northern campaign. Send this by swiftest rider. Bran's wisdom will temper council schemes. And Arya? Jon asked. She rides incognito to Bravos with a dozen unsullied, to learn what whispers stir. No throne awaits her hunger. Jon nodded. Silence fell, a gentle hush between storm and snowfall. He reached into his jerkin, produced a small carved wolf pendant. A token, carved from weirwood blown down near Winterfell. My mother's tree. Daenerys accepted it, thumb tracing grain. I will keep it near my heart. She unclasped a dragonbone clasp from her cloak, a spiral of 3 heads, and pressed it into his palm. Fire and sand, and now snow. He smiled, rare and genuine. Below, bells rang anew, not warning nor mourning, but heralding dawn. Above, clouds parted. Sunlight struck the phoenix standard atop the gatehouse. Its black field gleamed, dragon coiled around golden sun. Glass forged of fire and sand, tempered now by ice. War was not ended. Beyond the wall, death marched. But for this heartbeat, the realm inhaled hope. 2 rulers stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing north where horizons shimmered white, and south where lemon trees awaited reunion. In their alliance, the realm glimpsed something unprecedented. A dawn neither fire nor sand nor snow alone could kindle, but which all together might keep. They turned from the balcony toward dragons waiting saddled, wings to bear them toward the last war, where night's shadow loomed. The bells faded behind, replaced by the steady beat of wings as Drogon launched skyward, carrying queen and king toward fate, leaving the Iron Throne empty, cooling in sun, a relic of a world already turning to glass under new light. Outside the ruined September of Baelor, dawn's pale light washed the city in hues of pearl and rose, unveiling the scars of the night's swift conquest. Carpets of ash drifted across the marble steps where once High Septon Benerd had blessed the realm, and the shattered maiden statue lay face down in rubble, its stone tears mingling with dew. Overhead, a gentle breeze loosened scraps of lion banners from fire-scored walls, letting them spiral downward like wounded birds. The bells had rung themselves hoarse before midnight. Now they rested mute, ropes frayed, the great bronze throats cracked by sudden silence and morning chill. Daenerys Targaryen moved through the hushed square with measured steps, flanked by Jon Snow and Ser Jorah's old blade Heartsbane, borrowed for ceremony, strapped across her back. She wore plain black leathers beneath a traveling cloak stitched with narrow orange piping. The first garment of peace, the last of war. Her silver hair hung loose, rinsed of soot yet smelling faintly of smoke. Every onlooker dropped to a knee as she passed. Some bowed in awe of the Dragon Queen. Others bowed in gratitude for the night's restraint. All bowed in wary wonder at what dawn beneath the phoenix banner might bring. At the foot of the Sept's broken doors she halted. Workers milled inside, clearing charred beams and hauling out casks of unspent wildfire wrenched from hidden vaults. Their torches cast apple-green gleams on sweat-slick faces. Grey Worm oversaw the labor with silent vigilance, his bronze mask already smeared with soot anew. When he spotted Daenerys, he saluted, spear but striking marble. 15 casks remain, Your Grace, he reported. We move them to the river and scuttle them at twilight. No barrels left within city. Good, she said. Let the wildfire drown, never again to rise. Her eyes drifted to the cracked floor where Pycelle once lectured kings and where innocence had burned hours earlier. She breathed deep, tasting the bite of ashes in the chill. Burn what must, save what can. That will be our creed. Jon nodded beside her. He smelled of leather and pine soap hurriedly fetched from the Red Keep's still intact bathhouse. His black cloak had been patched with a scrap of phoenix fabric, an improvised badge marking him ally rather than conquering wolf. Yet the heaviness in his gray eyes betrayed a man already north in spirit. "The sooner the casks vanish, the sooner dragons may fly," he said quietly. "They will fly," she assured him, though her voice carried the weight of castles, councils, and 1,000 small tasks clamoring for her presence. From the city's crowded lanes rose voices of stewards handing out grain, of smiths rekindling forges, of maesters tending wounded. Each sound a new tether binding her to the south. She turned from the sept, gestures crisp. "Grey Worm, double guards on the granaries, but instruct them to lower spears and raise bread first. Tyrion will oversee tax roll audits. Ensure levies are halved until winter's end." Grey Worm inclined his head. "As you command." They made for the Red Keep along a route that wound through the gutted Street of Sisters. Black-roofed houses gaped like skulls where scorpion bolts had shattered rafters. Volunteers already piled rubble into carts. Dothraki riders hauled beams clear while Dornish carpenters hammered supports. A mother stepped from a doorway with her daughter clinging to skirts, dirt streaking both faces. She held out a fist of wilted roses. "Red, gold, orange. For the Dragon Queen," she whispered. Daenerys crouched, accepted the offering, and tucked the flowers into Jon's cloak clasp. The child's eyes widened at Drogon's distant roar. "That one's for you," Daenerys told her softly, pointing skyward. "His name means strength." The little girl nodded, speechless. Jon smiled, but sorrow flickered behind his grin. He had seen too many children die, too many small gifts drowned by war's flood. Beyond, the mud gate yawned open, its courtyard teeming with arriving lords. Garland Tyrell in shining mail, escorted by several hundred Rose standard knights. Ser Edric Dane with a short column of Starfall's finest. Lord Royce of Runestone, bearing parchment from Sansa that confirmed the Vale's neutrality until ice broke. Each knelt before Daenerys, swore provisional fealty to the Stewardship Council, and offered provisions: carts of wheat, hogs, barrels of salt fish. She accepted, mindful that promises sprout quick beneath dragon shadow yet wither when wings depart. Midday found them inside Maegor's holdfast, where the Iron Throne still stood vacant beneath tarp and chains. Its silhouette loomed behind scaffolding as masons chipped off barbs too treacherous even for symbol's sake. Nearby, a long oaken table held not swords but scrolls, ledgers of grain, lists of orphaned children, rosters of City Watch defectors. Around it gathered the nascent council: Tyrion in ink-spattered jerkin, Samwell Tarly freshly arrived by raven-steered galley, Davos Seaworth smelling of tar, Lady Brienne shining like dawn in new-etched phoenix breastplate, Varys, silent, a ghost at edge, Bran Stark's raven perched upon a stand, its message ciphers decoded by Missandei, instructions for civic archives, suggestions for election of ward councils, cryptic assurances that the paths of men and kings converge soon upon winter's heart. Daenerys addressed them without dais or crown. "The city is one, but the realm remains besieged by hunger and fear. You are its lifeblood now. Flow well or it dies." She laid both palms flat on the table's scarred oak. "In 2 days Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion depart with me, Jon Snow, and a vanguard of 2,000 unsullied, 1,000 Northmen, and 300 Dothraki outriders. We fly to Winterfell, then the Wall. The stewardship will govern until we return or until the darkest night is over." Tyrion tapped quill on parchment. "I humbly accept the hand's burden." He surveyed the others. "We will levy no taxes save voluntary tithes. Grain stores shall be rationed equitably. Clean water wells dug south of Dragon Pit. All refugees from war camps welcomed within the city's perimeter." He paused, eyes meeting Daenerys's. "And above all, we will keep the bells silent." Samwell cleared his throat, producing a slim amphora painted with runes. "Dragonglass oil, our most recent distillation. It adheres to blades, arrows, even spear tips. On impact it shatters, spreading shards. I'll send further batches north." His cheeks colored when Daenerys thanked him. Davos spoke next, voice low. "I sail tomorrow with a squadron to Eastwatch carrying food, dragonglass, and any volunteers able to fight." He clasped Jon's forearm. I'll see the wall is ready for dragons. Jon squeezed back. Send word by Raven the moment the dead approach. They already approach, Samwell murmured. He unfurled a parchment inked in astonishing detail. Icy tracery marking armies of whites advancing from east and west toward the shivering sea. Reports from rangers speak of white rafts stitched from frozen kelp and bone. The enemy has learned to cross water. A hush fell, colder than the sea wind. Daenerys traced the routes, silent tendrils squeezing the coast. Then we have precious little time. Varys stepped forward, gloved hands trembling. One final matter, your grace. He bowed, unrolling a separate scroll bearing the sigil of the Iron Bank. Your conquest unsettles their ledgers. They demand repayment of Cersei's outstanding debt from the crown or transfer of creditors to you. Daenerys's voice chilled. Tell the dead collect no interest and that I may yet be their only solvent debtor. They will wait. Tyrion smirked. By the time they realize survival outweighs profit, we shall have paid in gratitude, not coin. With that settled, the council dispersed to tasks. Daenerys lingered last, gazing one more time at the empty throne half-wrapped in canvas. She saw not swords but ghosts. Ares laughing as wildfire burned. Viserys, veins bulging with crown of molten gold. Children screaming in Astapor. Slaves cheering in Yunkai. Pyramids gilded with hope then stained with blood. She touched one razor-edged bar where Balerian's breath had fused steel to shape, a reminder of conquest at its cruelest. Then she turned away, leaving throne and ghosts to rest. Night-draped kings landing in violet silk, stitched with lanterns flickering along narrow streets. Daenerys stood on a balcony outside her temporary solar overlooking Blackwater Bay. Below, Viserion's pale shape glided across water's onyx sheen, wingtips skimming foam like a ghost gull. Beyond, at the chain tower newly captured, Dothraki riders hung lanterns shaped as dragonflies, a sign to fishermen that the harbor lay open. Jon joined her, cloak replaced by simple black doublet. He carried 2 cups of honeyed wine. She accepted one, sipped, and let warmth settle. They cleaned the dungeons today, he said, freed certain debtors, buried the worst cutthroats in Potter's Field. He tilted head. Gendry found Arya sharpening a stiletto near the mountain's corpse, muttering she hadn't finished with him. He sent her to braid hair at the castle's orphan ward. Daenerys smiled faintly. She will return to her list one day, I fear. So long as it doesn't lengthen to include queens and kings, he murmured. Silence grew comfortable between them. On the horizon a storm brewed. Lightning flashed violet behind clouds, thunder rolling over calm bay. Daenerys watched the distant flicker. Ice and fire, she whispered. The sky reminds us. Jon set his cup down, leaned on the balcony rail. When we ride north, my heart will be half here, worrying the city may crumble without you. And mine will be half in Dorne, fearing Arryn faces daggers. She shrugged. Hearts are not swords. They grow sharper when split. She looked at him. Will your Northmen trust a southern queen riding dragons above their villages? They'll fear first. Then they'll see the dead burn and they'll thank you. He hesitated, breath misting. But they will follow me only if they believe I stand firm next to you, not beneath. In Dorne we stand side by side, she said. I intend the same beneath snow. She set her cup aside. We should plan mounts, supply lists, flight schedules. Jon's hand settled over hers. Firm. We can plan at dawn. A moment's rest first, for tomorrow may never offer one again. She inhaled, tasting honey on his breath. The thunder boomed closer. For a heartbeat, they lingered on the edge of things unsaid, unsworn. Then a raven croaked overhead, flapping from the rookery toward the east. The spell broke. She drew back, sharper now. Very well, dawn. He bowed, took his leave, and vanished into torchlit corridor. Daenerys stared after him, heart rattling like bells. She turned to the storm, winds whipping hair across her face, and called Drogon silently. A shadow answered. He perched on the tower above, eyes glowing ember red. She spread arms. He rumbled. The storm began to cry. Rain fell, soft at first, then heavy. She let it soak cloak and skin alike until tears of sky washed salt of war from her cheeks. The last sunrise before departure broke blood orange over the bay. In the courtyard below the dragon pit, soldiers assembled. Unsullied ranks gleaming, northern bowmen in wolf fur, Dothraki steeds stamping eager hooves. Supply wagons rattled, each axle greased with tallow to endure cold. Atop the central platform stood 3 dragons fitted with leather harnesses impregnated with dragonglass studs, less for armor than for symbolism, warning to the undead that these beasts were forged against them. Daenerys descended steps cut into the hillside. Aegon the Conqueror's old war cloak draped across shoulders, dyed black, trimmed in phoenix orange. Tyrion met her halfway, parchment in hand. Stewardship edict signed by every present lord. Copies stored in Maester's vault. He handed a small pouch of sealed scrolls. One for Bran, one for Sansa, one for Lady Mormont should fate turn cruel. She tucked them into saddlebag. Tyrion, thank you. She placed a hand on his shoulder.
Govern Wiseli.
I intend to tax the rich, feed the poor, and outlaw privy murder. Modest goals. His smile flickered. Go. Win a greater war. Missandei clasped Daenerys in brief embrace, whispering Valyrian blessings. Grey Worm saluted. His company would march by land after seizing derrick wagons filled with dragonglass oil. Varys bowed with dignity reserved for kings. Brienne, for once, spoke only, "Return alive." Samwell thrust a leather tome into Jon's hands, an updated treatise on White Walker anatomy. "Read on the road," he urged. "Knowledge cuts deeper than steel." Ravens scattered as Regal spread wings first, lifting Grey Worm's unit onto his back. Viserion crouched for northern scouts. Drogon bent his vast neck. Daenerys climbed, harness buckles snapping. Jon mounted behind her, rope loops hooking around saddle horns. He glanced down at Ghost pacing below, restlessly. "Stay," he commanded softly. Ghost whined, frost-white against black dragon scale, but obeyed. Daenerys leaned forward, whispered, "Sovits." Rise. Drogon's thigh muscles coiled. The earth fell away. Wind slapped faces. Regal and Viserion rose in formation, wings beating thunder into morning sky. Below, the courtyard shrank. Soldiers waving spears, phoenix banners streaming. The city flashed momentary brilliance, rooftops reddening in sunrise, then receded beneath swirling mists. They banked north over Blackwater Rush, its surface glinting silver. To the west, charred hulks of Euron's fleet still smoked on shoals, skeletons of iron memory. Beyond, golden fields of the Reach spread like patchwork. Fallow now, but promises of spring. They rose higher, clouds closing beneath. The land became a map in haze, lines of rivers etched in glitter. Hours passed in silent awe. Jon's arms wrapped her waist for stability, the warmth of his chest steady against wind's bite. They crossed the Mander, past Old Oak's faded banners fluttering peace, swept above Golden Grove where Orchard Rose glowed copper. At midday they paused on the broken hill fort of stony September Dragon's Roost. Soldiers dismounted for quick rations. Dothraki riders rubbed chilled hands. The air carried crisp bite reminding southern throats of northern winter. By dusk they reached the neck. Bogland fog clung to dragon bellies. Will-o'-wisps winked among black reeds. Crannogmen emerged from huts on stilts, bows lowered in wonder. Their chieftain, a wiry woman with reeds braided through hair, knelt, offering smoked eel. "For the wings that darken white shadow," she said. Daenerys accepted, promising aid come spring. They camped on a pine-crowned ridge beyond Moat Cailin. Regal's injured wing twitched but held. Fires burned low, spark damp to hide from roving white scouts rumored south of the wall. Jon traced star positions, mapping their course, winter constellations already dominating. Daenerys gathered Snow's officers, Tormund with new bear fur cloak, Angui fletching dragonglass arrows, Gendry hammering spare heads on portable anvil to review night attack signals. The sky thickened with chill, wind carrying scents of distant frost. Before sleep, Jon found Daenerys alone beside Drogon's foreleg, stroking scale ridges. Moonlight silvered her hair into halo. "Rest," he urged. "Dragons guard us tonight." She looked at him, eyes reflecting stars. "Do you fear tomorrow?" "I fear failing tomorrow." He crouched, gloved fingers tracing cold grass. "If we cannot hold the wall, the living might flee south and starve." "You saw King's Landing," she said. "We can feed many, but not the world. So we stand here." He met her gaze. "At world's edge." He reached into satchel, producing a circlet of woven snowberry and pine needles, stiff with frost. "Northern brides wear this across brow on eve of battle for luck." He gently set it atop her hair. "Luck is scarce these days." She touched the circlet, breath-catching. Then she removed a small phoenix pin from cloak and pressed it into his palm. "And southern consorts gift flame." She folded his fingers over it. "So frost meets fire." They lingered, but duty called them to separate tents. Jon lay awake listening to wolves howl across the fun, the pin warming his hand like coal. Daenerys dreamed of lemon blossoms dusted by snow. At dawn, white sky greeted them. A light powdering dusted dragon wings. Columns formed, marching across last river's frozen shallows where once Theon Greyjoy fled. Beyond, the pines thinned. The King's Road emerged, rutted by refugees seeking Winterfell's walls. They gave the dragons wide berth, eyes wide, but some knelt, muttering prayers. Jon's men distributed smoke-cured venison, small mercies. By midday, Winterfell rose. Gray walls rhymed in hoarfrost. Towers glinted ice. The gates opened to welcome the vanguard. Sansa Stark, wrapped in white wolf fur, stood beside Brienne. Bran waited on rampart, eyes distant, ravens circling overhead. When Drogon settled inside the courtyard, the ancient keep shuddered, but its heart tree remained still, red leaves rattling like soft applause. Sansa curtsied, formal but warm. "Your Grace, Winterfell is yours." Daenerys dismounted, feet crunching snow. She embraced Sansa, surprising both. "Thank you." She turned to Bran. He raised a hand. His pupils shone silver. "Night falls soon," he murmured. "We must hurry." Planning consumed the day. Catapults dragged to ramparts, trenches filled with dragonglass stakes, mages from Old Town inscribing runes of fire and dawn along parapets per Bran's instructions. Dragons roost on broken watchtowers, one replaced by charred stone from First Conquest. Dothraki set up camp outside, crates of oil-lined walls, each jar bearing Black Sun sigil. Tormund relayed news from Davos. Eastwatch evacuated. White spotted on shivering sea ice flows 6 leagues south. Jon ordered torches every 20 yards along garrison line. Arya returned at dusk, reporting tunnels beneath crypts sealed with dragonglass spikes. No shades would rise from ancient tombs unchecked. Night's cold deepened. Snow began to fall, soft, then thicker, smothering sound. Fires crackled in courtyard braziers. Soldiers huddled, whispering stories. Of giants turned to ice, of blue-eyed bears, of horned blasts lost in blizzard. Daenerys moved among them, offering words, but knew fear heavier than snowflakes. In the Godswood she found Bran waiting by Heart Tree. Red leaves fluttered like bleeding hands. "You sought me," she said. "I saw you long ago," Bran whispered. "Under the Shadow City palm. You gave a peach to a slave boy." She frowned, remembering Astapor. "Yes, that mercy echoes tonight. Remember it." His gaze unfocused, pupils swallowing whites. "The Night King seeks me. One last mark of man he would erase. He will come for the tree, for the weirwood light inside me. Hold here, draw him in, let dragons burn his guard." Then, he hesitated. Someone must stand before him with dragonglass blade, forged by children and men, wielded by fire and ice together. "Jon," she murmured. Bran blinked. "Perhaps, and perhaps another." He looked at her, gaze ancient. "The song has 2 verses." She felt chill deeper than winter. I fear no blade I wield can pierce him. Fear is a sword's edge, he replied. Temper it with love. She left him, unease stirring. At dawn gray they took positions. Dragons circled above. Soldiers lined ramparts. Archers knocked dragonglass. Snow drove sideways in hard gusts. The world looked carved of chalk. Silence fell so complete it hurt. Then came the drums beneath the earth. Rumble of countless feet, of ice cracking like ribs. Shapes emerged from swirling white. First a gaunt elk skull crowned with frost, then rows of limbs clacking skeleton rhythm. Whites, dead free folk, night's watch, wild beasts stitched with ice. Behind them, giants lumbered, blue embers burning where eyes had been. Battle erupted. Catapults launched clay pots of oil. Dragons strafed, torrents of flame turning snowstorm to steam. Whites ignited but pressed on, fire-shedding limbs still clawing. Dothraki screamed, a rocks of black glass slicing blue sinew. Unsullied shield walls parted and reformed, spears punching through undead breastplates. Northern bowmen loosed until fingers bled. Amid chaos, Daenerys on Drogon's sword, incinerating a giant that tore half a tower away. Jon on Regal dived at another, severing head with flaming claws. Far below, Sansa directed wounded to crypts. Arya danced along parapets, dagger flashing. But for every white felled, two more rose. Snow turned mud, then slush of blood and ice. Storm clouds churned, blotting sun. Bran sat beneath the heart tree, eyes white, ravens swirling overhead, a beacon calling doom. Then the air froze solid. A hush devoured screams. From swirling blizzard strode the Night King, sword of ice radiating darkness. Mounted upon an undead wyvern of shattered bone, he glided across shattered field, whites parting. Daenerys wheeled Drogon, flame roaring. The Night King lifted arm, flame guttered, smothered by sheer cold. Ice spiderwebbed across Drogon's scales. He roared in pain, dropping altitude. Jon spurred Regal, swooping toward the Night King. The ice spear flew, Regal veered, but shards sliced web of his healing wing. The dragon spun, Jon clinging. They crashed into rampart, stone spraying. Daenerys saw Jon limp from rubble, dragging Longclaw. The Night King dismounted at Godswood Gate, whites swarming behind. Bran sat still, heart tree bleeding red sap. Daenerys felt time split. Memory flashed. Bran's words, blade by fire and ice together. She nudged Drogon into steep dive, ignoring frost creeping along reins. Jon fought toward Bran, Arya at his side, blades whirling, but undead tide hemmed them. She landed Drogon behind gate, sliding down before he steadied. Snowbit cheeks, frost-stung lips. She unsheathed Heartsbane, Valyrian steel, and stepped between Night King and Bran. The cold so intense it cracked leather sully. The Night King's face blank, eyes infinite winter. He raised sword. Jon broke through line, whites clinging. He hurled dragonglass spear. It shattered on Night King's armor. Arya darted, but frost wind flung her aside. Bran spoke one word, forgotten tongue. The heart tree's sap glowed like embers. Daenerys gripped Heartsbane, fire-forged steel, lined with orange rune leather gifted by Arianne. She lifted the blade, meeting ice. The clash sang, a note so high the air fractured. Sparks of pale blue and red-orange cascaded. Steel steamed, ice hissed. Pain scorched her arm, but she pressed. The Night King parried, thrust. She deflected, edges shrieking. Frost crept up blade, red wax seals bursting. She swung wide, his armor cracked slightly, spider lines. Jon appeared opposite, Longclaw raised. Together they circled, mirrored halves. Night King pivoted, sweeping ice blade. Daenerys ducked. Jon met strike, steel blazing with ghost fire. Impact jolted, light erupted, snow vaporized. Arya, recovered, dashed low, hamstringing a white threatening Bran. Bran's eyes remained white. Ravens surged, pecking white faces, distracting. Night King pivoted, aiming killing blow at Daenerys. At that instant, Jon crossed blades atop strike, locking. Daenerys reversed Heartsbane in two-hand grip, drove it into fissure, splintering his breastplate. Valyrian edge met dragonglass vein inside. Steel and volcanic glass fused beneath forge centuries past. A pulse of light exploded, blue shattering into drifting shards, orange flaring like sunrise. The Night King's face cracked, crumbled. His body fissured, then burst into storm of snow. A sound like glaciers breaking echoed across field. All whites froze, then collapsed, threads of ice severed. Giants toppled. Silence rolled out, brittle, unbelieving. Snow continued to fall, soft now. Daenerys swayed, blade smoking. Jon caught her elbow. Heartsbane's edge glowed dull red, frost melting off. Bran's eyes returned to brown. He exhaled a single misted breath. The song's second verse, he whispered, sung. Cheers rose, weak, weary. Grey Worm gave unsullied salute. Tormund howled. Dragons roared, triumph echoing through broken towers. Days later, the dead burned in pyres taller than Winterfell's walls. Their ash drifted across white fields, gray upon gray. Survivors limped through tasks, burying friends, tending wounds, repairing collapsed fortifications. The dragons rested upon snow-dusted ramparts, tails curled. In the great hall, feasts of meager fare turned celebratory as wagons from the south arrived, grain, Dornish wine, fresh lemons even. Arianne herself rode with escort, silks hidden beneath sable cloak. She found Daenerys in the godswood, knelt, laughed, then embraced her wife amid drifting petals of frost. Jon stood with Sansa upon battlements, watching sunrise. The Queen saved us, Sansa admitted. And you, brother. We all saved each other, he replied. He touched Phoenix pin at his collar. Councils convened. Lords debated borders, trade, rebuilding. Bran spoke little, but when asked what kingdom he desired, he answered, a realm of many hands, guided, not ruled. Tyrion proposed election of ward councils. Sam drafted charters. Davos planned harbor reconstruction. Weeks passed. Snow melted. Crocuses broke earth. Drogon's shadow still wheeled but cast no dread. Children chased it, laughing. In King's Landing, the stewardship oversaw restoration. In Sunspear, Prince Doran passed peacefully, Arianne inheriting Sunspear crown to share with Daenerys. The Iron Bank forgave half the debt in exchange for shipping lanes protected from pirates now leaderless without Euron. One bright morning, on a hill above Winterfell, Daenerys, Jon, Sansa, Arianne, Bran, Tyrion, and representatives from every land gathered. An obelisk carved of black glass and white marble rose there, inscribed in Valyrian and common tongue. In winter's heart, fire and ice forged peace. Let the living remember. Beneath the monument, Daenerys laid Heartsbane. Jon laid Longclaw. Bran touched both, whispering blessing. The blades flashed, then fused, forming a new sword of Nightbright and Dawndark stripes. Bran offered it to Arya. Carry memory, he said. She accepted, eyes shining. Jon turned to Daenerys. Snowflakes fluttered though air warm. Where will you go now? Everywhere, she said. To rebuild Myreen's ports, to seed grain across burned fields, to teach dragons that claws can guard, not only rend. She smiled. And to taste Dornish lemons again. He laughed. I may visit. Ghost loves warm sands. A bark sounded. The dire wolf trotted from pines, tongue lolling. Drogon trilled from sky. For the first time in years, Daenerys felt the world exhale in calm. The war of glass had held, tempered, unbreaking. Across horizons new songs awaited, but this one, fire and sand, ice and snow, reached its coda in peace. She took Jon's hand. Arianne laid hers atop. Overhead, clouds parted, sun casting golden glow across monument. Shadows of dragon wings swept across stone, endless, enduring, joined. A slate-gray dawn filtered through the smoke-scarred arrow slits of Winterfell's east tower, touching the cot where Daenerys Targaryen dozed. in uneasy slumber. Dreams clung to her like cobweb silk. The Night King exploding in shards of sapphire light, Arianne plucking lemons still warm from Sunspear sun, Jon's cloak brushing her cheek as they walked the godswood path carpeted in fresh spring snow. A clangor of distant hammers scattered the images. She blinked, breath frosting, and sat upright. The keep stirred with a different rhythm now, a pulse of rebuilding rather than alarm. Clatter of carts bearing cracked stones from broken battlements, rasp of saws biting pine trunks, smithy anvils ringing measured beats instead of frantic bursts. The war for Dawn had ended, yet the realm yawned open like a field newly plowed, waiting for seed. She rose, shrugged into riding leathers, and pushed through the door to the rampart walk. A keen breeze snapped her cloak, carrying scents of wet earth and pine resin. Down in the outer yard, Dothraki stable hands groomed northern Garrens, speaking halting common tongue mixed with guttural laughter. Ironwood masons argued with Stormlander carpenters over the angle of a new timber frame. On the platform beside the Godswood Gate, Regal perched, wing bandage removed at last, lofting his green-gold head to sample the wind. Jon Snow strode from the training yard, hair ruffled by chill. He wore no crown, just a dusky gambeson, wolf sigil freshly stitched over the heart. Ghost padded alongside. When he saw Daenerys, a smile creased the line of his scar. "You missed the council. I needed sleep that wasn't shackled to strategy." She glanced down at the bustling courtyard. "What mischief did they plan without me? Sam has half the Citadel's journeymen drawing sanitation aqueducts." Jon wiped a smear of soot from his cheek. "Tyrion's negotiating wheat shipments from Lady Olenna's successor, though Garland seeks 3 seats on the new council in exchange. Life finds the cost of peace quickly." She folded arms against the wind. "And Bran, in the crypts, speaking with past kings no one else can hear." Jon's frown lingered, then passed. "He says rivers will flood soon when the spring thaw hits the neck. We'll need causeways raised." She exhaled, steam wreathing her face. "We saved the world. Now we repair its bridges." Her fingers brushed the phoenix clasp at her throat. "I should ride south. Arianne cannot hold the viper nests forever without me." Jon's brows knit. "Winterfell needs you too. The realm will listen to a queen who faced the Night King and stood unburnt." She met his gaze, flame and snow. "If I stay, rumors will call me conqueror. If I go, they'll call me deserter." She sighed. "We might share crowns and still feel the thorns alone." Footsteps approached. Sansa, cloak of snowy fox fur trailing, parchment in hand. "I beg pardon," she said, voice measured, "but a raven from King's Landing arrived." She offered the letter. Daenerys broke the seal. A ripple passed her features, half relief, half anxiety. "Arianne writes Sunspear's harvest promises bounty, but pirates from the Basilisk Isles raid winecogs bound for Storm's End." She bit her lip. "And Karth requests dragon escort for spice fleets. Remnants of the Warlock Order plot revenge." Jon angled his head. "Our dragons can't chase every shadow." "No," Daenerys agreed, "but allies can." She turned to Sansa. "Would the Vale's fleet patrol the Stepstones if Dorne grants grain and the Crown funds their dry docks?" Sansa's eyes flicked between them, quicksilver. "Lord Royce's knights relish a naval adventure." She tucked loose auburn hair behind an ear. "If the terms benefit small folk." Jon placed a hand on his sister's arm. "Every decision must." A gong boomed from the inner ward, summoning them to midday meal. Daenerys lingered, gaze sliding eastward where the horizon shimmered. "Meet me at dusk, in the Godswood," she told Jon. "I have a proposal." He studied her, curiosity kindled, then nodded. The feasting hall thrummed with voices when Daenerys entered, flanked by Missandei and Grey Worm. Long tables bent under platters of salt pork, turnip soup thickened with barley, wheels of goat cheese dusted in ash. Smoke coiled from hearths where new-felled spruce crackled. Lords and free folk alike hunched shoulder to shoulder. The smell of victory's afterglow, stew, sweat, cedar, blanketed the air. Tyrion stood atop a stool, goblet raised. "To the women who saved us all," he proclaimed, sweeping his cup toward Daenerys, Sansa, Arya, Brienne, and a clutch of northern healers still scrubbing blood from sleeves. A roar of approval shook rafters. Sansa bowed her head with measured grace. Arya winked before gulping ale. Brienne crimsoned beneath kinswoman cheers. Daenerys accepted a pewter flagon of lemon water, savoring tang. She slid between exhausted soldiers, listening more than speaking. A red-haired girl described outrunning an undead bear thanks to Dothraki scouts. A bearded blacksmith boasted of forging dragonglass nails for every infant's cradle to keep ice ghosts away. A minstrel plucked a harp missing 2 strings, singing of glass-forged dawn, verses awkward yet earnest. Across the table, Samwell Tarly pored over tattered parchment, lips moving with silent counts. When Daenerys approached, he startled. "Forgive me, your grace, just tabulating population losses. Grim but essential." "How many?" "A third of winter towns lie empty." His eyes glistened. "Yet births will surge once planting starts. Hope is fertile soil." She squeezed his shoulder. "Record the names of villages lost. We'll plant weirwood saplings at each ruin." He swallowed. "A forest of remembrance. That, or a promise of new roots." Near sunset, Bran wheeled into hall on oaken chair pushed by Podrick Payne. The murmur faded. Bran's gaze unfocused, as if seeing through walls. He spoke quietly, yet every ear caught the words. "The wall of ice is broken no more, but walls of pride still stand. Break them gently." Podrick guided him to hearthside. Tyrion refilled everyone's cups, launching into a tale of how he once bargained a goat for a night's lodging in the Eyrie, embellishing details until laughter drowned the goats themselves. Daenerys slipped away. Dusk grayed the sky to pearl when she stepped beneath the heart tree's crimson canopy. Its face, carved long before Valyria's rise, wept fresh resin tears that shone in candle lanterns hung by silent sisters. Snow melted into mossy humus, perfuming the glade with petrichor. Jon stood by the small pool, ghost curled at his boots. He turned, face lit by lantern glow. "You asked to meet." She approached, cloak whispering. "I've thought of a bridge stronger than steel or parchment," she said. "A union not of crowns but of peoples. The 7 kingdoms once broke under Targaryen dragons. Let them heal under shared blood." Her heart thudded. "Marry me, Jon Snow, wolf and dragon, fire and ice truly one. Not for love of power, though power it grants, but for love of peace." Jon's eyes widened. Snowflakes settled in his curls. He moved closer, voice low. "Marriage binds more than us. Some will rail at incest's hint. Others will hail new dynasty. We share no mother's womb," she countered. "Only the roots of old trees." She touched his chest over the phoenix pin. "And the realm already sings of us fighting side by side." He exhaled, words misting. "I have bent the knee in war. Bending the heart is harder." He looked to Ghost, then back. "But I would gladly, if the North keeps its freedoms." "Every region shall keep freedoms," she promised. "A council of equals, throne's empty save symbol. You will remain king in the North, I queen of Dragonspear. Our joint seat roves where needed." He brushed a fingertip across her cheek. "Then let the gods bear witness." He dropped to one knee. Not contrition but offering. Drew the phoenix pin free and repinned it over both their cloaks fastened together. The woven crowns of pine and snowbearer bowed. "Daenerys Stormborn, break my chains as you broke theirs, and I will guard your skies." She knelt too so their eyes met level. "Jon of House Stark and Targaryen both, stand with me as Dawn's ward." They kissed softly, snow melting on their lips. Beyond Heart Tree's roots, ravens rustled, Bran's silent blessing. News of the betrothal rolled through Winterfell like spring thunder. Some cheered, some fretted. Davos muttered about genealogies. Tyrion calculated wedding feast casks. Sansa penned quills worth of letters to vassals. Arya smirked, betting Gendry 2 silver stags that the High Septon would choke on tradition. A raven sped to Sunspear. Days later Arianne arrived, silks fluttering like sunset pennons. She strode into Great Hall, eyes gleaming. "My Sun Queen," she declared, "I will share your heart, and if necessary, your husband." Jon nearly spilled ale. Arianne laughed, voice like chimes. "Worry not, King Wolf. Dornish law loves many shapes of love." She clasped his forearm. "Protect her, or Dorne's knives will find you." Her smile told him she'd jest. Mostly. In the moon's next cycle, delegations from every corner gathered upon the Kingsroad plain south of Moat Cailin, this time not to war but to witness. A pavilion city bloomed. Golden roses of Highgarden intermingled with ironwood banners, swan pennants, kraken black sails repainted with phoenix silhouettes. 1,000 tents hummed with singers, smiths, merchants hawking mosaic glass. Children fed carrots to shivering Wintertown ponies, while Dornish falconers traded desert hawks for northern snow furs. At dawn on the first day of the spring equinox, symbolic midpoint of dark and light, the ceremony unfolded in a ring of standing stones older than the first men. Priests of the Seven recited blessings beside Giscari Sakafa dancers swirling incense. A red priestess intoned praises to Lawler before extinguishing her flame in clear water of a weir stream. A maester from Hightower read from the Book of Annals, naming every cross-kingdom union that ever mended wounds. Tyrion served as master of revels, sipping arbor gold and announcing, "If past unions ended in daggers, may this one end the forging of them." Daenerys wore a gown of silvery moire that flowed like dragonfire turned to silk, stitched with opaline scales. Over it, a Dornish half-mantle of sunset orange clasped by star sapphire. Jon bore midnight wolf leathers under a surcoat embroidered with phoenix rising, swordless by choice. They clasped hands over a shallow basin carved of dragonglass. Bran, chosen as seer and witness, guided their palms to lace together. "Blood of ice, blood of fire," he murmured, cutting a shallow nick in each thumb. Crimson droplets fell into water, swirling until pink hues mirrored dawn. Bran poured the water onto a bare seedling in earthen pot, an offspring of the Winterfell heart tree grafted to a lemon sapling. Roots drank the mingled blood. Leaves unfurled small and bright, purple-tinged. Gasps rose as delicate white blossoms appeared on one branch, tiny red dragon fruit buds on another. The Union Tree, they called it. Cheers erupted. Dragons soared overhead, fiery contrails painting sky violet and gold. Riegel's roar vibrated standing stones. Viserion answered. Drogon swept low, blasting a distant cliff to glass in spectacular salute. The thunder rolled for miles. Feasting lasted 3 days. Wildling mead flowed with Dornish red. Reach minstrels braided melodies with Braavosi drums. Jon danced a bear dance taught by Tormund. Daenerys joined red priests in spiral of silk. Tyrion gambled away half the crown's jewels at dice, but won them back with a song praising Mole's town brews. Arya vanished at dusk, reappearing dawn with pockets full of Lyseni dice, smirking. On the final night, under newborn stars, the couple slipped from revelers to the crest of a barrow mound. Below, tents glittered like constellations. Ghosts chased fireflies. Drogon perched sentinel. Jon lay on cloak spread over damp grass. Daenerys nestled beside him, head on his shoulder. "We forged peace," he whispered. "We planted its seed," she corrected. "Now we must tend it, through drought and frost." He smiled, brushing her hair. "We have dragons for warmth, and wolves for warning." She touched his cheek. "Children will ask what song we sang the night winter died." He traced an arc across sky where Hercune's comet faintly shimmered. "We'll tell them we listened to quiet." She closed eyes, heart steady. The wind carried no screams, only distant laughter. Moonlight silvered the Union Tree beyond pavilion, petals fluttering like promises kept. Years rolled like slow rivers. Under the joint council, the assembly of glass, the 7 realms mended. Lordlings bickered, harvests faltered, pirates rose and fell. Yet dragons patrolled sea lanes, and wolves guarded mountain passes. In King's Landing, the Iron Throne remained empty, encased in crystal and set in public square as monument to ambition's cost. Children climbed its frozen blades for dare until watchmen shooed them. Daenerys and Aerion split seasons. Spring and autumn in Sunspear rebuilding water gardens. Summer at Meereen negotiating free trade. Winter at Winterfell where snow-fanged pines mirrored glassy dragon wings. Jon traveled more than any king before him, binding clans in Skagos, quelling Stormlander feuds, teaching free folk to plant barley. He and Daenerys seldom parted more than a moon's turn. Flight collapsed distances. In their third spring, Bran summoned them to the Isle of Faces. There, in the green silence, he offered prophecy. When dragon wings darken Valyria's smoke again, beware not the fire beneath, but the shadow beyond. They puzzled over it, but left with seedling gifts, saplings from the Union Tree to plant in each kingdom. Time wove new legends, of Queen Daenerys riding regal to melt the last slave collar in Volantis, of King Jon facing crocodile wights in drowned forests of the Neck, of Ghost saving twin princesses, Nymeria Stormborn and Lyanna Sand, from a manticore in Dorne, of Drogon's yearly glassfire forging where artisans shaped obsidian into windows for the Citadel's high tower lantern, filling Old Town nights with aurora glow. In the 10th year of their reign, rumors stirred of a shadow across Valyria, ships vanishing, dragons uneasy. Daenerys recalled Bran's warning. She and Jon prepared once more for flight, side by side. Council folk fretted, but remembered winter's end and trusted. On the eve of departure, they stood again beneath Winterfell's heart tree, now towering Union Tree grafted at root, bearing pale lemon dragonfruit hybrids that tasted of sun and snow. They bit shared fruit, sweet and tart. Jon hefted Longclaw returned from monument for need. Ready, always, she said. Drogon roared. Ghost howled. The moon hung full, silver on scales and fur. They mounted, wings beating thunder. Below, the world they'd healed glittered. Rivers reflecting stars, villages lit by glass lanterns, fields green even in frost thanks to dragon-forged soil. They banked southeast, toward smoking ruins men still feared. Wind rushed, constellations turned. The couple leaned into future's dark, hearts steady, blades bright. Behind them, petals from the Union Tree lifted on night breeze, drifting like glowing snow across ramparts. Snow of fire, promise of dawn. Till they settled on stone, took root in cracks, and waited for sunrise to coax them into bloom again.